All right, so for the second half of going back to the basics and talking about gender, so we're still within the binary framework. I think this part might take a while, so maybe tomorrow we'll do part 2, non-binary gender fluidity, the actual crux of getting down to gender basics. Because right now, in order for us to have this conversation about going back to the basics, we actually have to talk about where we are right now. And where we are right now is there's a loneliness epidemic, there's a gender war, there's everything that always was. It's just now we're talking about it on TikTok and we're having this conversation, right? And when we have these conversations, we have to first establish like where is the standard of introspection and deconstruction? And then how do we get to a better place, which is the goal? So the goal, in my mind, for Brittany, is to aim for a society that does not create inherent judgments or assign action to gender. And of course, we'll talk about race and everything else in the future. But for today, gender. Meaning when children are born, there's not an expectation of outcome because they are said gender. There are obvious, because I think we're biological creatures having a biological experience like existing on planet Earth, I do believe that we will all naturally fall into specific categories that will then put us into different actions, but I don't think they'll be based off of this binary male or female or men and women or whatever you want to say. And so the goal, hopefully, is to eradicate this desire and need to assign futures for children once they're born just because they're a child. Well, taking into consideration that the nuances of the baby and how they're born into the universe might then, like you could say, oh, Brittany's had this personality since she was a kid. She was always going to end up this way. Sure. But it's not because I'm a woman. But also because I'm treated as a woman in the world, I do have stories that are similar to other women. And yet, as I move along this gender deconstruction journey, honestly, the more I hear women talk, the less I identify with them. And the more I hear men talk, the less I identify with them. And then the more I hear anybody talk, the less I identify with them as a whole, but yet we have shared experiences. So externally, my experience, I relate to you. Internally, my experience, less so. And this will go to tomorrow's video about like, what if we all just have our own genders, which we'll talk about, or like, what is gender? So I agree that externally I'm having a very similar experience, but I no longer internalize it as my experience. And this is a very interesting conversation to have. So let's have it. You guys really wanted me to review this video and this topic. So I'm going to use this trending topic to have this conversation with you. Here we go.
I realize a lot has already been said about this interview, but I think there's one more clip that's worth watching and discussing. So let's do that together.
That affects our lives that we have no control over. For example, because of the dating and mating crisis, we no longer have sexual connections, emotional connections, and there's a part of the brain that is getting starved because sex is so important. So there's something missing in our lives, and that's what is necessary for addiction to grow. And this is creating huge problems because it's sort of like if I fill up your stomach with unhealthy food, you don't have any micronutrients, but you're not going to crave broccoli. So that's what's happening in our society. We're using porn as a substitute for relationships. And that's creating these really strong societal pressures, including a mass extinction event. Because we've got 32-year-olds who do not know how they're going to ever have children. Men are getting really, really angry. There's like this incel movement, like women feel safer with a wild bear than they do with a man.
So this is very much the alt-right pipeline, and the
Okay. I understand that I live on the internet in a way that nobody ever does. And I understand that I have consumed like so much content compared to the average person. And I understand that my special interest is watching everybody. I also understand that I'm a flawed person and I've definitely had bad takes in the past. Okay. So moving forward, I would like to have better takes based off of a really deep understanding of what I think is happening and what I think is right or wrong or towards a goal. So in the past, when I tried to cater or speak to or in any way engage in the male communities, the boy communities, I obviously had to change the way I spoke to be in that club because language is very important. In the same way that I would change how I spoke if I spoke to an all-female community and female, male. We're going to be a little redundant with language today, but bear with me. Because the audience is different. And the audience is different because our external experiences create that deviation in action, okay, and expectation. This video already, just things I've noticed, okay? The video is an edit. The video is a preview. The video has music. The video is clipped. The video is for promotion. It is not Dr. K's content. He's a guest on somebody else's. He is not owning the narration of this video, and everything about it is branded towards a specific boy bubble, which is meant to evoke a certain emotion out of the male audience to then attract them to this content, right? So as a media consumer, I do think it's a part of our job to understand the format in which we are engaging with this content. Dr. K short form is not good Dr. K content. His best content is long form, and I watch a lot of it, okay? He makes 4-hour streams and I watch them because I think they're really fucking good. But if you watch a 4-hour stream versus a 20-second clip, you don't know Dr. K's work necessarily. Now, if Dr. K was a TikToker, that'd be different. But he's not a TikToker, is he? He's a YouTuber and a psychiatrist. Okay? So that's different, right? Now, the Diary of the CEO does this thing that's really annoying. They'll have Dr. K on, and in the bio, which these women pointed out, it will say loneliness expert. And everyone's like, what the fuck does that mean? Dr. K is not a loneliness expert. He is a fucking doctor. This is his website. Dr. K, as he's known to many online, is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and lifelong gamer. He's the world's leading expert on modern mental health issues. Now, I don't know if this is like a fluff because that's how the world works. With a focus on the effects of technology, his expertise spans video games addiction, very important, creator mental health, the restorative power of community support, and more. His qualification is very important here. He also does feature his wife in his little like, who is he? And I think that's really cute and important because she works with him as well. But I think what's more important is that he doesn't call himself a loneliness expert. That is done by Stephen Bartlett, by the Diary of the CEO. It's done to bring in the type of audience that watches this content, which, by the way, is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important. Okay, it's so important you pay attention to who's watching the content because it changes the way that people speak on these platforms, right? Okay, we'll get into that in a second. Here we go.
The reason I know that is because I'm very familiar with church culture, very specifically fundamentalist church culture and the way that these people think. And let me just tell you, they're the same picture. Everything that this man said is something that I have heard in the church, including the criticism of porn, including the idea of SMEX as something people need. Anytime that things start to sound like something I used to hear in church, I know that people that are watching this content and taking it seriously are going down the alt-right pipeline. Starting with the whole things are out of our control thing. This is not only a defeatist mindset, it's also like the precursor to like Boone and anchor his argument in a place that can't be argued with. It's basically a false presumption right out the gate that this is something that people, and even more so specifically men, cannot control. That's a scary thing to say. And that is not a factual thing to say because truthfully, these things can be controlled. Maybe not in the way that we want, but the truth is women have come out with their standards and the ball is in men's court. They can either decide to live up to those standards or basically both sides are going to decide not to date each other. That's what.
Okay. Dr. K would not disagree with what she was saying. I disagree with her assessment of Dr. K. Dr. K has always made it clear the job of a man is not to find a girlfriend. The job of women is not to cater to men. I'll show you his clips because I think this is important for people to understand. I understand why some of the most leading voices of women are angry at Dr. K right now, and a lot of men are trying to pander to him too. I'll show you in a second. But again, he is not Jordan Peterson. He is not alt-right, but he is trying to save men from alt-right or trying to help them at least, which means he's going to talk in a way that first validates their fears and then course corrects. Because look, outside of red pill talking points and your evangelical church, sex is important. And we are facing a birth decline. And it's not going to be easy. I agree. The birth decline is not necessarily a negative, but if we're having a real one, we all need to get ready for that because I know people don't think about it because it's not in the forefront of their mind because you're just so focused on dating. But then we do have to put structural things in place for it, guys. Retirement, mail delivery, how things get allocated out. Like we do have to think about all those things. So that is also true. And Hank Green kind of talks about this where he's like, hey guys, the birth declining thing is like kind of important, but not in the way you think. And yeah, so we need to think about that, right? Okay, Also, yes, chat says, I don't know if she looked into him or if I feel like she did not look into him because he's not a Christian. And that's the problem. He's not a Christian, doesn't come from a Western background in that traditional sense. He literally gets made fun of by Christian white guys all the time. White liberals are always questioning his credentials because he's brown and believes in his own spiritual practice. Like, that's the problem. Dr. K is not a white guy. He's coming from a completely different perspective and he's trying to integrate it into the Western philosophy because he sees the benefits of it. And that's what's so exciting about his work. He's the first person to bring spiritual practice into medical practice in a way that's really, people are really hearing. He's the first guy who can get access to the Sneakos and the Gamer Bros and the Destinies and everybody else. And though I don't think it helps the direct streamers, it might help people in their audience. Right? And that's worth it because he's an adult. He's different than a Hassan, who's a streamer who hasn't taken on the responsibility of being an adult. He's different than me, who's not taking on that responsibility. Me talking to Sneeko is not helpful. Him talking to Sneeko, helpful. Okay, helpful. She's also autistic. Okay, great to know that she's also autistic. Okay, we love that. Look, I like a lot of her content I've watched and I've liked. So I just want to say that too. I've watched a lot of her TikToks and I generally have enjoyed her content, though I think she and I are not women in the same way. I really can't explain it to you guys. I don't feel like I'm the same kind of woman she is. I don't think I'm a woman in the way other women are women right now. I'm really going through like a huge gender deconstruction. It's really changing my whole perspective on all of these conversations. And the more I do hear women talk about being a woman, I'm just like, okay, and I love that. But like, this doesn't feel, maybe because it feels reactionary to me. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Do I feel less like a woman because women are being so reactionary and I don't find it to be helpful? Or do I just find that as I get closer to my deconstruction, I'm just feeling like less related to that particular experience? So when I have the conversation, I'm also trying to figure it out for myself, which is what I'm hoping for all of you. Because again, when we get down to the basics, we're just trying to be better people. We're trying to be less bad people. We're trying to help people. We're trying to love people. We're trying to build a better world. Like when we get down to it, we're just trying to understand ourselves more in the world. So that's why these women who are holding themselves to these high standards, well, then that's going to make me want to hold them to a higher standard, which means that I'm going to need you to do more than base a whole opinion on a 15-second TikTok, unless you're just right. Like, back it up if you want to back it up. Sometimes I can watch a 15-second TikTok and be like, I know what's happening here. And sometimes I'm right, but sometimes I'm wrong. And when you're wrong, you got to fix that, right? Okay, let's talk about it.
What's happening, but it is not outside of anybody's control. Women have done the part that they can control, and the ball is now in men's court, and it has been for hundreds of years. This is nothing new, by the way. This male loneliness epidemic, the fact that men are not dating or mating, whatever, all of this is within men's control, and men are making an active choice, by the way, just as women are saying, these are our standards, this is what it would take to date us. There are many men out there that are actively saying, I will not rise to these standards. I will actively stay exactly where I'm at because I don't want to do that. Are they angry about it? Are they afraid of being alone? Yeah, those things may be true, but again, it is in their control. And by the way,
Discord said, I think she doesn't realize he's speaking to men in and recovering from red pill manosphere stuff. Yeah, I don't think she gets that. So I don't think a lot of my audience even gets it sometimes, because Dr. K, his whole thing is the incel guy, right? And Jordan, by the way, Jordan Peterson tried to be the incel guy, but can we all agree he is not the good? We need somebody who's willing to do the work to help the incels. Jordan Peterson tried, and he was the worst thing to happen to men, right? He did not help. He made it worse. Dr. K, I think, is making it better. I think he is. I think Dr. K is what Jordan Peterson wanted to be. And I think there's a reason why Dr. K isn't as popular as Jordan Peterson. And I think it's white supremacy. I think it's Western values. I think he's an Indian man who was a monk and did meditation and believes in alternative science along with medical science. He's spiritual. He's not an anti-vaxxer. He's not, all these things. And I think that's what's throwing people off is you keep trying to make him Jordan Peterson, but Jordan Peterson is Jordan Peterson, Dr. K is Dr. K. They're not the same category, right? But they are both trying to help incels. I just think Dr. Jordan Peterson is like the worst thing to ever happen. He's not helping. And I just think Dr. K is better. Katie, membership for 8 months, says, remember to like the stream. Loves, remember to like the stream, girls. Okay, here we go.
This is the exact way in which men have been manipulating women.
Well, chat says, I wasn't aware the target audience was incels. It's gamers, incels, neurodivergence. He's called Healthy Gamer. That's his tag. He talks to streamers and gamers. That's Dr. K's audience, right? He's trying to help boys who are in this bubble, right? He doesn't appear, he's not worried about gym bros. He's worried about gamers, you know? Yeah, and he's not grifting his monkness like Jay Shetty. Notice Jay Shetty lied about being a monk and gets so popular. He's so fucking popular. Dr. K doesn't lie about it, really did the work, and everyone's like, The reason I don't think Dr. K is as popular is I think he's authentic. I do. I think he is joyful. I don't think he's fearful. I think he is progressive, but he doesn't state it. He doesn't use progressive language, and he doesn't exactly tell you his opinion, but if you listen to his real work, his actual channel, it's pretty obvious to me he's pretty progressive. But I can understand why he can't say it, because if he does, it might turn the same boys he's trying to help, it might stop them from listening. And that's why when he goes on these podcasts, he doesn't talk the way he talks on his channel. He talks like a little differently, which he should, because 99% of the audience watching Diary of the CEO are men, which is going to play into my criticism of these women in a second, but let's get into it.
For hundreds of years, they've been saying these are our standards. If you can't cook, if you can't clean, if you're not a virgin, etc., etc. Put a pin in that virgin thing, by the way. If you don't take care of yourself, like visually, if you don't work out, like we're not going to date you. And women have acted accordingly. When somebody has something you want and you think you want it, you're going to do whatever it takes to get it. If you don't want it that bad, then you're not going to change anything to get it. And this is where that disconnect is, right? Between dating and mating, between smex and relationships, especially in this man's shriveled up, tiny little rat brain, okay? The things that he's saying, I saw somebody in the comments say this, that just because you say these things calmly with a lot
just listen to that.
like visually, if you don't work out, like we're not going to date you. And women have acted accordingly. When somebody has something you want and you think you want it, you're going to do whatever it takes to get it. If you don't want it that bad, then you're not going to change anything to get it. And this is where that disconnect is, right? Between dating and mating, between smex and relationships, especially in this man's shriveled up, tiny little rat brain.
Shriveled up, tiny little rat brain. I don't want to be that person, but anytime people bring up animals and people of color, and specifically with the amount of India hate right now, it made me go, you know what I mean? It made me go, but I don't know. Shriveled up rat brain, I don't know. That made me very highly suspicious. So she edited this video, she said it, and I was like, do you want to maybe like re-edit the video? Do you want to maybe re-edit this out, girl? I don't like that, and I personally feel like it was a bad call given the climate on the internet right now, and given that Dr. K already gets it from white men. White men already don't like him because they think he's a crazy little like Indian guy, you know?
Okay, the things that he's saying, I saw somebody in the comments say this, that just because you say these things calmly with a lot of...
Chat says she calls white men rats too. I'm not sure that matters. Like, just like the language we use can be very, you have to be careful. Again, as a public figure, as a person who's trying to be very critical of people's work and how they say things, that's all I'm saying. You know, if she's going to go after Dr. K for the way he talks, you know what I'm saying? Like, girl. And I get it. We all don't say things perfectly, right? Totally. But yeah, like the language is interesting.
Like emotional control or whatever, that does not mean this conversation is not abso-fucking-lutely unfucking hinged. It does not mean that what you're saying is not like straight out of like a incel manifesto. Okay, moving on to the whole dating and mating crisis that leads to no sexual connection and no emotional connection. Oh, by the way, those things are different. And by the way, one of those things men are very interested in and the other one they're not. So pairing them together like that is very disingenuous because you're presenting...
It's because Dr. K is actually trying to get people to actually, oopsies, I can't believe I just did that.
A lot has already
oh my God, I can't believe I just did that.
This conversation is...
Okay, the reason Dr. K does that is because he's actually trying to get people to fall in love with like the love of their life, because he's very in love. He's in a very happy marriage and he's got 2 kids. Dr. K is really happy with his life and he wants other people to be happy, right? So when Dr. K talks about falling in love and mating, he is talking about falling in love. He doesn't want to separate sex and emotions, or physical and emotional, because when you're in love, they're the same, you know, or they're similar, or they overlap, or they're important. So when she says men don't care about emotional, they only want the sexual. Yeah, he's trying to get people away from that, right? Like he's trying to get people away from thinking that way, because that's not helpful. And it is a reason why everyone's disconnected right now. It's why everyone's always been disconnected, right? So we also have to redefine what sex even is, right? Okay. Chad says, does Dr. K say he ever took the red pill or was close to it? I wonder why he's good at talking to incels. No. But what he does identify with is a guy who felt hopeless, a guy who felt nerdy, a guy who had no direction in life, a guy who wasted a lot of his life playing video games, a guy that just felt like he was never living up to the standards of his parents. But no, Dr. K was never actually as bad as any of these men, to be fair. But even at his worst, he got enough of an understanding to be like, oh, I understand what it's like to be at least somewhat adjacent. But he's never been like the Andrew Tate guy. He's never been a red pillar. He's never been that guy. But he's been the nerd guy. The sad boy. Sad boy. Okay, hold on. I accidentally lost my timestamp here.
Not abso-fucking-lutely unfucking hinged. That does not mean that what you're saying is not like they're not. So
Okay.
pairing them together like that is very disingenuous because you're presenting these things as though they come together for both men and women. They don't. At scale, there are way more women that are offering both than there are men. Most men are really, even within committed relationships, they only want to offer and experience the sexual connection. They are not interested in the emotional connection whatsoever. So right then and there, that's another disingenuous statement that anchors the conversation in a fake reality, in something that is not actually happening. Okay, on to the next part. There's a part of the
Do you know what I mean? She's saying it's not actually happening, but it should be happening. We should, like, he's trying to get Dr. K. The reason I like his content is he's actually trying to get guys to go for the good. He's not just giving them red pill solutions. He's actually saying, like, these solutions aren't working. That's why when men in his audience go, like, how do I find a girlfriend? He goes, I don't know. That's not my job. That's not what we're doing here. We are not trying to find a girlfriend. He's not Myron from Fresh and Fit. Hey, Myron, how do I get bodies? That's not what Dr. K cares about. He's like, we're going to talk about introspection. You are not defined by having a relationship. So that's why he's talking that way. You know?
The brain that's being starved because SMEX is so important. I'm going to stop you right there. That sounds exactly like church speak.
It sounds like church speak, but is it church speak? Just because it sounds like it, does it? That's why when we do the first part of this stream together, we talked about gender from aesthetics. Is calling someone ugly misogyny? Is calling a woman ugly misogyny? Not always, sometimes, maybe. Because we have to understand that, like, when we move through life and we talk, things sound the same. I can say something the other day on stream, like a year ago, I said unhoused people, you know, some people will say like, oh, should we house unhoused people? And I'm like, I don't care. That's not important to, I don't care. And people are like, wait, Brittany, you don't want to house unhoused people? I was like, no, I'm saying we should house them. Because in my head, I was role playing a conservative. A conservative would be like, Brittany, should we house unhoused people? I was like, I don't care. Yeah, house them. Like, I don't care. They're like, well, don't you care? Don't you care that resources are going to house them? No. And that's why words can change things, right? Like, when I talk, you know, it goes back to this whole, like, I love pancakes, so you hate waffles. And that's why it's our job to say, okay, what are you saying? Are you saying this? Or are you saying this? Or are you just saying you love waffles or you love pancakes? But are you saying you love this? Or are you saying this? And what does that mean? Okay, so I hear her. I think she's right that if she had made this video about so many other people on that podcast, I would have agreed. But I just feel like this was the wrong assessment of Dr. K. But again, I don't want to make a whole thing about like Brittany defends Dr. K. I want to say because of gender dynamics and our lack of deconstruction, we are going to view people as categories. And she's already doing that to Dr. K because he's a man and he's on this podcast. She's making assumptions about his work because it rings true for something she heard her whole life about gender dynamics. And I'm saying she could be correct and I could be wrong, but I'm going to make a case for why I think it's important that when we're deconstructing gender, meaning to understand it more deeply, to take apart and understand the details, we understand the nuances of language and how, yes, sex, it can be very important in relationships. Though, of course, I would say it's not sex like penis, vagina sex. I would say it's more like physical intimacy or connectedness or hugs or kisses or something like that, right?
Sounds exactly like the type of shit that pastors used to the emotional
rewind
connection
it.
whatsoever. So right then and there, that's another
I rewound
disingenuous
it for a
statement
second.
that anchors the conversation in a fake reality, in something that is not actually happening. Okay, on to the next part. There's a part of the brain that's being starved because SMEX is so important. I'm going to stop you right there. That sounds exactly like church speak. That sounds exactly like the type of shit.
I want to just say this right here. So The part of the brain is starved from not having sex. So you might hear that in church because conservative people weaponize their misunderstanding of science in order to push bigotry and misogyny. So just because church people weaponize the language doesn't mean it's not true. It's just not true in the way they weaponize it. That's why I say conservatives are kind of right, but they're so wrong. Like their intuition is right, but they're so wrong. Obviously, it makes no sense to, you know what I'm saying? Like it makes no sense to think in a healthy relationship and dynamic that denying sex to your partner wouldn't be abusive. Because denying is the word here. Denying is doing the heavy lifting. No, you can't have it. Versus, oh, baby, I can't tonight, but you want to have sex tomorrow? Or like, oh, actually, I'm not in the mood. And I haven't been in the mood for 6 months. And that still can be okay. You can have a marriage where somebody hasn't been in the mood for sex for 6 months and it's the healthiest relationship ever. Or you can have somebody who hasn't wanted to have sex in 6 months and it's something's wrong. It's not the sex. It's the why. It's the why.
That pastors used to say to women in order to guilt and coerce them into having obligatory mechanical smex, maintenance smex with their husbands. They would say you are starving your husband of affection. You're starving him of the things that he so desperately needs. And the more you do that, the more he's going to turn to other things. Again, put a pin in that. We need to get it the fuck together about this sex as a need thing. Okay. It's not a need. It's a want. If it was a need.
Wait, Chesa, she never had this type of trauma. She's married to a very progressive guy. Like she never personally dated men like this, never had a bum father. Well, then didn't she just say she grew up in a church? Wait, what are you talking about? What are you replying to? Are you saying she doesn't know what she's talking about because she never had this? Or didn't she just say, I grew up, I'm very used, didn't she just say she's an former evangelical? So she must be impacted by that background, right? That's obviously her trauma or her talk. That's she made her whole thing is like talking about misogyny and patriarchy, right? I'm assuming that's why she clarified that she's from these bubbles and she knows them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It would be something that you'd be biologically unable to survive without. The only thing that men need and crave is power over women, which they oftentimes
Okay, listen to this. Listen to this sentence.
Play out about this sex as a need thing. Okay, it's not a need, it's a want. If it was a need, it would be something that you'd be biologically unable to survive without. The only thing that men need and crave is power over women, which they oftentimes
I don't understand what she's saying. So this is what I'm saying. Are we having a serious conversation or are we trying to get a one up on a TikTok? You can't have a serious conversation and say men don't need sex, but what they do need is power over women. They don't need either of those things. Are we having a serious conversation right now? Need is subjective to the human experience. Need is also biological. So like, why did she say that? Like, that's not even a serious commentary on the whole conversation, right?
play out in the form of smex with women. Notice also how he didn't mention that emotional connection, that's how you know it was bullshit, as part of something that people need, because that part is actually very important to healthy development and things like that, emotional connection with other people. What is absolutely unnecessary to that is smex, because guess what? You're emotionally connected with your parents, hopefully without having smex with them. You're emotionally connected to your kids, hopefully without having smex with them. Your siblings, your friends, other family members.
Sure.
You don't have to have smex with any of these people to have an emotional connection. So that part is really not necessary. And you will
sure. I don't think marriage requires sex for it to be a healthy connection. But I think it'd be a little strange to discount the importance of sexual intimacy with a lived-in, loving partner. So depending on if that's even your dynamic. Again, I do not think it is a requirement of marriage to have sex, period. I do think there is a difference, though, between why the sex is or not happening, and also physical intimacy, I think, should be replaced with the word sex, because sex is so penetrative and it doesn't make sense to me, or it's so vagina penis, and I just don't think that's important. I think physical intimacy is the point we're supposed to be focusing on. So let me tell you this, it's the physicality of things, right? Like, my mom gives really good hugs. My partner gives better ones. Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like, my mom gives fire hugs, but my partner gives hugs that also squeeze a bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, okay, that thing right there, that's the thing that I'm like, listen, I'm not about to, okay. Again, maybe I'm just like a little too in love, you know what I'm saying? But like, and it doesn't require sex. There wasn't sex in that hug, but you know, let me just say this. If my mom hugged me the way my partner hugged me, I'd be like, yo, hold up. You know, so the way you hug also matters. Okay. But I think that's what people are saying. That's what even Dr. K is saying. It's not the sex that the brain requires. It's the kind of hug you don't want your mama giving you. You know what I'm saying? It's the kind of hug that makes you like a little blush in the face, you know? Okay.
Will eventually lose your ability to have it, especially as a man. So it's not necessary to your fucking survival. That's what that tells me.
Okay, so obviously I disagree with this. I think physical intimacy is obviously very important to most people I meet. It's just the way it shows up is different. Even the ace people I know, demisexual people, fully asexual people I know, still desire some level of physical intimacy. It just doesn't look like penetrative sex. And I hardly think that if I understand Dr. K and his work, he would ever really say that that's even the requirement. He's just using the word that resonates with most of the world. But I really think my hope, right, for people, my hope for people is that we're able to validate any form of affection that people are giving each other in relationships, whether it's head pats or shoulder rubs or nose kisses or full on fucking eating ass. You know what I'm saying? So again, I think what people are chasing. So I thought about a way to say this. So imagine 3 categories of people. They're all seeking the same thing, but they try to get it in different ways. The first person is seeking this physical intimacy. They're so desperate for it, they maintain a situationship just to keep it. Or they maintain a relationship with a toxic family member just to have some sort of physical connection with loved ones. So she's right. This physical affection you can get from your family and friends that isn't sexual is something we want and desire generally, okay? And you can find it in one of 2 ways. But what if you're trying not to have a toxic relationship with anybody and you can't get it from somebody? I would argue if it's a determinant to your health, it is a need. So then I would argue physical affection is a need and you might not have access to it. And then your brain and society tell you the way to get access to it is romantic relationship because you can't go just find a family. And or if you even choose chosen family, you still have to choose a chosen family that's willing to hug you in a way that's like, hey, I need a weekly hug. You got me? Like, yeah, chat says people are touched and intimacy starved. They absolutely are. People are so deeply starved from physical affection that the only way society tells you to get it is sex. And I'm saying you can get it in other ways, but to say that intimacy between partners isn't a requirement and isn't different. Listen, again, a hug, the way my partner and I hug each other is not the way I hug my mother-in-law. They're different kinds of hugs. Okay, so you either get it through a negative situationship, or you get it through a positive situationship, situation in which it is 2 consenting partners, romantic and or friends and or platonic, that come together to be like, hey, I really need a hug right now. Can I get a hug? Bro, I got you. Let me hug you. I'll give you the best hug you've ever felt. And what I'm giving you is reassurance. What I'm giving you is a physical reassurance of my love and stability in your life. Okay? That's what we're all seeking. It's beautiful. All caveat. Healthy generally. That's what we're seeking. The other category is the more extreme. I'm not getting it. I'm entitled and I'm going to take it from you. We don't want that. We don't want this. We want this. Okay? We do not want the extreme of I'm going to get it anywhere I can get it, even if it's toxic. And we don't want it from the I'm going to take it from you if you won't give it to me. We want an understanding of living in a community that's loving, affectionate, loud. I notice when I hang out with groups of friends, there's 2 types of groups of friends. The friends that are like this, and you go in to hang out, they're like, okay, fine, valid. And then there's these groups of friends. Okay, I am this person. I'm generally touching, shoving, grabbing, nooging. Like I'm usually like, and that is a form of affection and love that I'm expressing. Now, I respect the people in my life that do not appreciate that form of affection, and it's valid. I hear you, I see you, I will restrain myself. But just know, if you want it, I could give you a great hug right now. But, okay, do you know yourself well enough to know why you're denying yourself physical affection? And if you are, is it really helping you? If it is, great. And if it's not, let's do something, right? But these are different ways of engaging. So when I ask people, are you deconstructing gender as well as deconstructing trauma, as well as deconstructing your understanding, as well as asking yourself, why do I do things? My brother calls me the other day farm brother. He's got 5 kids, that one. He calls me and he goes, we're catching up, blah, blah, blah. He goes, oh, hey, I've been watching The Diary of the CEO. And I was like, oh, okay, just heads up, bro. A lot of his guests are kind of like hokey. Like a lot of his guests are definitely like misinformed, but he's got some good ones on there like Dr. K. I say this to my brother, okay? My brother goes, yeah, after watching his podcast, I started hugging the kids. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, Dad never hugged me. And I was like, bro, Dad hugged us, bro. Like I was hugged a lot. He goes, yeah, you were hugged a lot. Dad never hugged me. I was like, no. He goes, yeah, dude. I was like, no way. And he goes, yeah, Dad never hugged me. And I was like, well, damn. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm really sorry that happened. Because I really love how much my dad hugged me as a kid. I love how much my mom hugged me. And I was like, oh, shit. And look, we have 10 kids, so every single one of us was treated different. So I don't know which one of the other brothers maybe was hugged, not hugged. I don't know. But I was like, oh, shit, that would change me. So he said he makes an effort to hug his kids. And I just think that's beautiful. And if that came from the inspiration of watching The Diary of the CEO, I'll take it. Is it the ultimate goal? No. Is my brother even in a perfect place? Absolutely not. He's doing so many things to break generational curses and trauma, and I love to see it. And he's creating his own. I can see it happening, right? So when we have these conversations, it's just like very important we take it into consideration, right? Yeah, chat says, my sister is asexual. She doesn't even like hugs from family. She gets frustrated when people insist it's trauma related. I don't want to question her lived experience, so I don't know. She has some deep and meaningful relationships, by the way. I think it's very dependent, but I will say as somebody who's grown up with people as well, who are like on the ace spectrum and or hated being touched and hugged, when they find the right people or person and they do some work, they tend to be okay with hugs. It's just like, it's the reality that you might not feel as safe as you think you are. That's what's so interesting. I'm not saying everybody needs physical hug. I'm saying it's okay if you recognize you don't feel safe with people. Because the truth is, maybe the people around you aren't as safe as you think. And that's the truth of it. Like, or she might have sensory issues, touch averse. She might have a lot of things. I'm saying what's really cool about it is that it's totally dependent on the person. And they get to do the work to figure out the why. And it might change in the future. So this goes into gender as well. Guys, if we had to have this conversation 10 years ago, the way I'd be making this content would be different. The Brittany you see in front of you now, this is the content I'm able to make. In 10 years, I'll make different content. But the relationship with ourselves changes over time. So sometimes people will say, oh, Brittany, are you a heavy sleeper? Which Brittany? Which era of Brittany are we talking about? Oh, Brittany, do you like this? I don't know. What year are we talking about? 1992, Brittany loved it. 1995, Brittany, not so much. Because I am not one Brittany. I am all of the Britneys, and I'm always the past Britneys and the present Britneys. So even identifying, I don't touch people. I don't kiss people. Oh, I kiss everyone. I'm a horn dog. Sex 10 times a day. All of these things are fluctuating experiences. Who knows what you'll be in the future? Okay? So all these people, they're like, I have sex 7 times a day, and that's how it always should be. I'm not saying it will change. I'm saying it's okay if it does. Right? Also, guys, thank you so much for your hair compliments today. I know. I'm feeling Talia cute today. I'm feeling so pretty. I know. Thank you. I appreciate you, girls. Okay, listen. Let's go through these comments, or let's go through these videos together. We're just gonna, I didn't have time to really get the order in because I just did it on stream live with you. But just, okay, hear me out. Let's go through these TikToks together. I think it's important. And again, I don't want to come off like I'm sitting here defending a man against women. I just think sometimes every time I see a woman post content that's about gender, but they aren't understanding the man they're criticizing, I do think it's interesting because, again, and I just want to make this clear, I don't like men as a system, but individual men are valid. Especially men that are working on deconstructing patriarchy, and especially people that are just simply born man or assigned man at birth. People, trans men, like all these, like there's so many good kinds of men. It's just generally the good kind of men these women are arguing against are bad men. But like men as a person, that's why I say deconstruct gender down to the basics. We don't actually want to live in a world, right, where we judge men for being men. What we do though, and what I think she's right to do, what I think a lot of these women are right to do, is heavily judge men as a system and be careful about the men upholding that system. I do agree with that, and I think that's very important, right? So I understand, like, you know what I mean? Never trust a man who goes, I'm a good one. Good men don't have to announce they're good. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Usually the problem, I think what I found works really well is that usually the problem that these men are failing to adapt to can be fixed. But the problem is that the solutions that work for the people who are successful will not work for the people who are unsuccessful. These are apples and oranges, right? So like, and this is the big mistake, is that when I say, okay, I am happily married with 2 kids, but the thing that I did won't work for these people. That's been my clinical experience. My advice does not work for them. Your advice won't work for them. What we need is a different system that addresses their fundamental problems. Right? Because I had what it takes internally. I was loved as a child. Like this is how deep it runs. So I knew how to give love and receive love. 1/3 of the men that I meet do not know how to give love and do not know how to receive love. Has nothing to do with their Tinder profiles. That's why they're fucked. And when people can say, go to the gym, make more money, but if you do not know how to fundamentally give or receive love, then like that's a huge problem. I think
Okay. Chat says she also collabed with a public offender. I've seen that collaboration. To be honest, I like Public. I like her. I think, and again, I hate doing this because it always feels like I'm talking bad about people that I watch on the regular. I don't think we're doing the same thing. If you watch Britney's content, I'm not doing what they're doing. I'm trying to go beyond, because I do think they are only in existence because they're facing they're reaction channels. They're reactive to the patriarchy. And I'm saying, cool, I see you, patriarchy. Anyways, let's do this over here. And I want to do that thing over here. Look, I would be a much more popular channel if I just made reaction content to patriarchy. Trust me, I always make more money when I do that. But I'm really not trying to do that. Yes, plus ultra. That's what I was thinking. Yes, plus ultra. I'm trying to go beyond. Okay. And I think they're both great though. I love them. I think it's important content. I think it's really, really important, but it's not the end. It is just the middle, right? And so it's valuable. It's important. It's good, but it's not the goal. And because it's not the goal, I'm always going to come off like I'm criticizing them, but I'm just trying to say like, okay, you guys heavily requested that I talk about this. Like, I cannot tell you the amount of messages I have gotten in the last few days. Brittany, please talk about this. I will. And I want you to see the good in their work. And I want you to see where I think they're fundamentally flawed with their assessment and judgment of Dr. K, because Dr. K is not like Jordan Peterson. But he is trying to help the same boys Jordan Peterson is trying to help. And so I can see why he's unlikable. But what he said here is so important. These boys and the methods to help them are not going to work for what worked for you and me exactly the same way, because we have something they don't. This is medium traumatized. I am deeply loved. My parents, though bigots and though people that I'm not even talking to right now because I'm trying to break a generational curse, love me unconditionally. And that has fundamentally changed the way I interact with the universe. My brother, who apparently my father never hugged, still would say his parents, my parents, love him unconditionally. They're just very stubborn. We did not feel loved. We felt deeply loved and still annoyed as fuck at our parents. But so deeply loved, so significantly loved. And that just changes your whole dynamic with how you interact with the world. Okay? And that's what Dr. K deals with. Dr. K deals with people who have never been loved, who still exist, and still, if you believe in any sense of accountability, restorative justice, making the world a better place, still need resources. And if they still need those resources and you can't do the work, don't get in Dr. K's way, because he's doing it. He's completely the counter to Jordan Peterson, and he is so needed right now. And you getting in his way is not going to help. Okay? And I say this as somebody that doesn't want to work with incels. I don't want to talk to them. But he does. And even though, and I'm being so generous, because I asked my partner this, what percentage of Dr. K's audience do you think he's going to help? And I said, I'll be very generous, 10%. He goes, whoa, that's very generous. And I was like, Because the reality is he is working with one of the most difficult populations. He is. Okay, Discord said 5%. Yeah, maybe realistically somewhere between 2 and 5%. But like he is working with one of the most difficult populations on the planet. Right? And I'm certainly not going to do that. So I'm not going to get in his way. And I think he's right. They're deeply unloved. And they deeply unlove themselves. And you have to understand this. Now imagine a man who was kind of basically loved and still went down the red pill route. It's like, damn. Okay, let's talk about it. There's something there. Okay, now watch this one. This is another girl.
More of the responsibility for some of these big fundamental issues that men and people in crisis can't solve for themselves.
I mean, your listeners as individuals need to take responsibility. And it's not that you have to take responsibility. It's not fair to you to be responsible for someone else. But unless everyone who's listening to this podcast goes out and literally hugs a man, no one else is going to do it. Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? You can't rely on society. We've been relying on society to fix the problem. It's not working.
That's right.
Okay, first of all, if this is all you've ever seen of Dr. K, I could make a whole 1-hour essay about this, but it's not really anything. Like, nothing was said yet. You don't even know the premise of the conversation. We don't even know, like, why he said that, right? We don't even know what it means. I know what it means because I know his work, but how would a stranger who's never seen him even know what any of this is about? Don't you intuitively ask yourself, oh, I wonder what the context is for this? And I know a bunch of people were like, what about the context? And they're like, there is no context. And a bunch of people thought these videos also got deleted, which I think was funny. I literally saw in comment sections of these women's videos, like, oh, I think he deleted the pod. Guys, the pod is definitely there, and I'm going to show it to you in a second for the full context. But like, the pod is up. The fact that these women literally think the pod isn't even up is like crazy to me. Okay?
His solution for what's going on with men is that we as individuals need to go hug them. What? Welcome back for the unintended part 2 of me talking about this dude, Dr. K. Now, when I posted a video critiquing this man, I got like 3 main comments. Number 1 being, he's not talking about women making up for the problem with men. He's talking about putting systems into place. Hence me showing the clip where he literally says we need to hug men. 2 being he's taken out of context. And 3 being, I don't understand this doctor. He's a really nice guy. Let me show you the other things this nice man has to say.
So men in today's society are not allowed to complain. So if you complain and you're a successful person or a privileged person, everyone is going to think you're arrogant. Everyone is going to think, oh my God, who's this fucking guy? This guy doesn't know what my life is like. How does he have any right to complain? But now we need to stop for a second and think about what it does to your psychology when you as a human being are not allowed to articulate your suffering. I've worked with people who've grown up in abusive
Okay. When Andrew Tate says it, it's bullshit. But when Dr. K says it, he's right. And that's the difference. When Jordan Peterson says it, wrong. Because he also follows it up with misogyny. Dr. K doesn't follow it up with misogyny. That's the difference. Because men are suffering. They are victims of sexual abuse. They don't have places to speak up. They can't, under patriarchy, express their pain without recourse. 99% of the audience who watches this podcast is men. So 99% of the listeners are going to internalize it as men. You know what I mean? So yes, I agree with them that their commentary would make so much sense if this was Andrew Tate. But it doesn't make sense because it's Dr. K. You know what I mean?
households where children will say to their parents, Mommy, Daddy, I'm hurting. And the parent smacks them across the face. How dare you? You're so lucky. You don't realize the sacrifices I make for you. It's traumatizing to the child. This is what we're doing to the generation of men. People are saying, I am suffering. For 100 years, men have been themselves. The most dangerous thing for a man under 45 is themselves.
And quick question, who is the greatest threat to women? Oh, okay. Notice how he infantilizes men immediately, comparing men not being able to complain to a child being by their parent. So much to unpack here. Number one, in my experience, being friends with men, dating men, loving men, I have never felt like men cannot complain. The internet is full of men complaining. This comment section will have men complaining.
She's right. Men do complain, and this comment section will have men complaining. Men, okay, that is true. I think it's a symptom of the state of the world, though, the way they complain. And again, I don't want to, my content isn't geared towards helping men as a collective. His is. So the way we talk has to be different, right? I don't think men who are suffering from misogyny are going to care about what a woman thinks in any deep or profound way that's going to also bring me joy in my sense of work, right? Dr. K is he is here as a fulfillment of his joy. Jordan Peterson is helping men out of a fear. That's why this is why this man is always sick. I'm telling you, this man is always sick because he is drowning under the stress of his like irrational fear about men and the world and women and all this stuff. But Dr. K isn't. He's in a loving, stable marriage. He's incredibly stable. He's focused on what he wants. He's gotten better over time. He never follows up any of his commentary with misogyny. It's always with women are not responsible. You are. But when he says the world or society or people, he's talking about the village. Ironically enough, he's talking about the collective. He is ultimately talking about us all being connected, right? He's serving his calling, his karma. Like Dr. K is spiritual. So for him, he's science. He's a doctor. And he evokes actually the spiritual practice that men in the West think is stupid, but women in the West should be embracing. Women in the West would actually love Dr. K's spiritual side. But he's talking about the collective village. You know, there was a comment I saw that said, if you do not love a child, the only warmth they will ever get in their life is from the village they burn down. And I think it starts when they're young, and I think it starts at home, right? So I do agree that the comment section will be riddled with patriarchy or misogyny, that she will be berated by men, that men will think she's stupid, that sometimes Dr. K's own chat is so fucking misogynistic, it's crazy. But that's not because Dr. K is a misogynist. It's because he's going right into the bubble. He sees, now imagine, you know, I Am Legend with Will Smith. You know the scene where the dog runs into the building with the zombies and he has to go in there? That's Dr. K. Everybody else is avoiding the building with zombies and Dr. K's like, I'm going in. And it's his stream. And so the comments on his stream are obviously deeply misogynistic, but that doesn't mean Dr. K is. But Andrew Tate is misogynistic. And so his chat is. And that's how I see Dr. K. But okay, let's finish this video.
There is a difference between not having the ability to complain and not liking the feedback you receive. Also, we are not these men's mommies and daddies. We are not their parents. We do not have a responsibility to them in that way. So saying that us not validating a complaint is the same thing as a parent striking their child is so bizarre. He does that.
He didn't say that. He said, I work with men who suffer from trauma, examples, men who were abused physically as children. Right? Like, I didn't hear it that way. We'll go back and listen.
Throughout this episode,
Let her
there's
finish.
multiple times that he compares grown men to children. And additionally, I don't think the objection is to the fact that men have complaints. I think it's two things. One, the ways in which they choose to complain or show their displeasure, which statistically includes violence.
I would be curious if they watched Dr. K's actual videos, if they would like him better than if they watched him in interviews. Because again, when he's in an interview, it's different. You remember when the debate bros were like, Brittany's so like, you know, loud and obnoxious and opinionated about me, but when she talks to me, she fucking changes? Yeah, because I'm talking to you now. I would always talk to you different. And I feel like if you watch Dr. K's his actual work, the work he's actually proud of, because remember, his interviews is not his work. He actually has a body of work. Do you know what I'm saying? Would they feel this way about him?
And two, when we think about the scale of the injury, this would be a much better conversation once we get past the point that men are taking out their frustration on women and each other with violence. Then I think we could have a conversation more so about how we react to people complaining. And
Sure. Let me rewind it really fast. Okay, hold on.
speaking of complaints, mine aren't over because
Okay, this is going to be another part, but
And
look
everyone
at
is going to
this.
think, oh my God, who's this fucking guy? This guy doesn't know what my life is like. How does he have any right to complain? But now we need to stop for a second and think about what it does to your psychology when you as a human being are not allowed to articulate your suffering. I've worked with people who've grown up in abusive households.
See, he said, I've grown up with people in abusive households. He's humanizing the situation. Okay, I get it. I'm very empathetic to the fact that these girls don't know him. I'm very empathetic to the fact that they're really just seeing him for the first time. And it's very like intense to see him. Okay, one more TikTok, and then I'm going to show you a podcast with Dr. K, okay? A section of it, okay? Look at this TikTok, because now it's not just women. Now the men are coming out and talking about how Dr. K sucks. Tell me, do you get good vibes from these men?
Generation of men that is like, we are literally watching them die out.
Good. Oh, wait, you had more to say? Okay, let's hear about it.
And then there are these other people over here who will go to therapy, who will work on themselves professionally, who will show up on dating apps. And because of the shape of their face, which cannot be fundamentally altered, or some other thing which they're not even aware of, there's this whole crop of people who I think are trying really hard. I don't think they're losers. I don't think they're like pathetic or anything like that. I think what they would trigger is exactly what we're seeing. This like existential panic, angst, even aggression, entitlement. Because if these men do not behave in this way, they're literally going to die out.
It's amazing that in a very academic way, he manages to also blame women. It's their fault because they don't like the shape of their faces. These aren't losers. These guys go to therapy. It has nothing to do with the shape of their faces or their physical structure. It's because they have no personality. They have no interests. They have no ability to relate to people because they actively avoid becoming friends with women. That's all it takes. That is literally all it takes. Try to become friends with women and don't try to them. And you will learn so much. You will grow. And you will be someone that women want to date because you will understand your male privilege. You will understand other people's perspectives. You will build empathy and compassion. And you'll just be a better person. Hey man, if you can't meet women and you don't understand why, try making friends with them. Try finding women that you're not trying to have sex with and just be their friend and listen to them. Have conversations with them. And of course, if you're just an incel, then you should be lonelier and you will die alone and we will all be happier. And this is Bacon.
There is
Okay, obviously, again, like, this guy feels like genuinely like I would never feel safe with this person ever. I would never feel safe with this man. And that's the thing is like, again, violence at the end, again, misunderstanding Dr. K. When did he even talk about women? Okay. You know, what was even that point? It felt very much like trying to appeal to women. This whole TikTok felt so weird to me. I did not like it. Okay. I did. Oh, wait, one more, and then I'm going to show you a podcast.
Society intervene to course correct that? Should we put systems in place to make sure that those men meet partners?
Does society have a responsibility?
No, wait. I love her. Not this one. Damn it. Wait. Oh, did I not pull it up? My bad. Hold on. Not this one. Not her yet. Hold on. I love her. Not yet. But also her. Disappointed, like, the conversation. But hold on. Not her. Wait. Let me see if I can find it. Because maybe... this one.
You just said
Let me pull this up.
that a huge amount of men between the age of 15 and 50 will not pass on their genes. They will effectively die out of the gene mating pool.
Good. Some of these gene pools need to be drained. But let's listen further.
So people will hear that and many people will go, well,
Wait, does everyone remember who this is? This is Lee, our favorite MPD. That's a joke. We actually don't like his content, but we don't hate his content. I don't watch his content. He's just somebody who keeps coming up on my feed, and I thought it was interesting that he decided to give commentary.
solution. Yeah. Should society intervene? You know, in the short term, we're going to have a lot of men who are disillusioned, that become incels, find themselves in pockets of the internet, are resentful, all those kinds of things. But should society intervene to course correct that? Should we put systems in place to make sure that those men meet?
What kind of systems can you put in place to guarantee that incel men meet partners? Unless we're talking about increasing the therapy budget and the hygiene budget.
You notice how they're criticizing Dr. K for Steven's fucking stupid question? Steven asked the stupid question. Dr. K didn't ask it. And also, when he says systems in place, these men are not eugenicists, guys. They're stupid. They literally think like, they're thinking more like therapy or education. They're not sitting here and thinking eugenics. They're not that smart. Like, you know what I mean? They're not, and when I say smart, they're not even that, like, they're not even going that far. They're not going to genes. They're thinking like, hey, do you think like society should fucking do something? Like give men grants or some shit? Like they're not, these are capitalists at the end of the day. With peace and love. I mean that in the nicest way possible. These are capitalists. You know who Steven is if you don't know? Steven Bartlett is, you know Shark Tank in America? He's a dragon. UK's Shark Tank, he's one of those guys. He's a capitalist. So he asks the stories. Guys, he interviews the same 15 people every year. And then he does the same videos every year. What's up with this loneliness epidemic? Why are men and women this way? He's just building a secure and easy podcast cycle that allows the people to have that same conversation, okay?
And it just workout budget or something like that. What systems are we talking about right here, right? I feel like with that mentality right there, it gives off the mindset that everybody is entitled to a partner, which can lead people.
Which, by the way, Dr. K would not say. Dr. K would say you are not entitled to that, right?
Down the incel pathway. When you get rejected constantly, you even feel like I am entitled to a woman. I'm entitled to a partner, and these people are not giving it to me, and I deserve it. So that increases the anger right there. What kind of systems could you put in place to count?
Chat says when they talk about the gene pool, though, it makes me, definitely. So when the boy bubble references genes in this context, they believe in like evolutionaries, like evolutionary psychology and they believe in like inherent biological traits that span thousands of years and talk about how like men are biologically this way, women are biologically this way. I'll show you an example of it. They don't really think of like white supremacist eugenics. That's a different bubble of assholes. But these ones are the other ones where it's like you want the offspring to be XYZ, but they're not like there's adjacent, they're like this, but they're not the same exact bubble. And I think this is really important because even when we talk about gender, guys, how can we even begin to talk about gender when we don't even acknowledge that there's like thousands of ways to experience it and we're getting them all the way down to 2? So same thing with white supremacy or racism or misogyny. There's not just one way to be misogyny. There's not one way to be racist. There's a lot of different kinds of racists in the world, a lot of different kinds of things. And the question is, which category do you fall into? So you know what steps to take to deconstruct that from your belief system. Okay. Because remember, if you don't fit the stereotype of racist, you will think you don't need to deconstruct racism. Because you'll think, well, I've never done X, Y, Z. Oh, I'm a man, but I've never hit a woman, so I guess I'm not a misogynist. No. Right? Okay. Right? Chet says the language seems dangerous, but I see what you're saying. Hold on, pause. Guys, the language is dangerous. Hold on. Sometimes I feel like, and I don't know if you're doing this, but sometimes I feel like when I explain things, I think that it's okay. I think it's dangerous language. I think it's a stupid fucking question, and I think it's so fucking destructive. But I'm explaining what the question is. I'm not condoning it. I don't fucking believe in it. I think it's a stupid fucking question. Okay, you don't. Okay, just in case someone thought that was, right? You know, Chet says it seemed like you thought it was really chill. Yeah. No. I just want to make sure. I'm just explaining what it is, but I think it's dumb. You know, I think it's a dumb question, okay?
Direct that right there, right?
I'm going to answer that question with a question. If, let's say, a huge swath of people are dying out from cancer, should we intervene with that?
Yes.
If a huge swath of people are dying out from, like, a virus, should we intervene with that?
100%.
So Dr. K makes the argument, if people are dying out from cancer or illness or housing or something else, should we do something? So men are dying out, right? Where men will die out. Maybe women won't procreate them, whatever. Yes, in some ways, normal and natural. In other ways, we should do something about the issue because, guys, we don't want this to happen. In an ideal world, not only would men not die out, they would be healthy, compassionate, loving partners. The consequence of patriarchy and men not improving themselves is that they will die out. But we don't want them to die out. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want the population to stop giving birth. It's only because we don't feel safe enough in this economy, in the world, with this Trump administration to make babies. We don't want people to not make babies. You know how many people I know that wish they could have had children but couldn't because of the economy? This isn't good that people aren't having babies. It's only good that people aren't forced to have babies. But it's not good that millions of people want children they can't afford. That's what Dr. K is trying to say. There is a problem. We should do something about it. But the solution is not red pill. Okay? I don't think Dr. K in any of his content has ever said anything that would tell me he thinks in any way the Trump administration is good, patriarchy is good, that like red pill is good, that these things are the answer. He just said the system isn't working. It's not helping people. What is the system? Patriarchy. He just said, Stephen Bartlett, you need to hug more people. What is Stephen Bartlett? A man. You need to hug more people. The system isn't working. Patriarchy. So, you know.
There are two important things. One
It's
is
slightly
that-
different though.
One is about
Yeah.
So one is like if a human being is dying, we should step in. But natural selection isn't necessarily about. This is what's really tricky.
Now, I am glad that Steve said it's slightly different, though. You comparing mating with cancer and deaths and viruses and things like that. Yeah, I feel like as society has progressed and time has came, right, men have to work harder to get women. There are a lot of men out here who feel like that's not fair. And honestly,
Chad said, wasn't there a study showing women don't technically need men? It's not always about women. I'm not a woman. Sometimes. I don't need men, but I like people who happen to be men. Do you know what I mean? When you start saying things like women don't need men, da, 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 yeah, women don't need men and men don't need women, but we don't need humans. Human beings don't need to exist. Do you know what I mean? Like, human beings don't need to exist. But what we would like is a healthy relationship with life, with us. So yes, in a world where like men aren't getting better, we do not need them and we can stay away. Right? So when we have this, oh, you were responding to chat. Sorry, chat. I thought you were responding to me. But I would just say, like, I don't like this narrative I hear from some bubbles as well. Like, we don't need each other. I don't even need my partner. But need isn't the point. The point is like, hey, I kind of want this thing in this way and I want it to be healthy. That's why we're going back down to the basics. I want a world that's healthy and loving and considerate and less bigoted. And I want a world that doesn't discriminate based off gender. So how do I move in that direction? And yes, I do believe no one should ever be forced to have a baby. And it is not our job to repopulate the population. It is our job, at most, to do less harm every day. But if right now the less harm looks like depleting the population, it is what it is. Okay?
we told, I was one of them, right? Growing up, they tell you all you had to do is get a good job and do this and work out and you'll get a girl, right? But that doesn't always work. Nowadays, women actually want you to be nice to them. Not all of them. Not all of them. But women want you to be nice and emotionally intelligent. There are a lot of men out there who are like, damn, man, I gotta be emotionally intelligent too? Damn. I can't just go to the gym and hit the weights and get some money and get some women.
Well, part of that is settling culture as well. And that's why I'll show you a clip. I should have it somewhere in this jumble of videos where Dr. K says, like, I would never give advice to a man on how to find a girl. That's not the job he wants to do. That's not the job I want to do here. I'm not telling you about high compatibility partnership or love because I want you to be partnered. If you find your person, I want you to be happy, but I don't think you're defined by your relationship. I don't think romance is the most important thing. Look, if women as a collective, we've already deconstructed this generally. Women realize they don't need a boyfriend, but boys still think they need a girlfriend. And patriarchy is really pushing that narrative. And I'm saying Dr. K is the only man I've seen in the manosphere who is a visitor, who is trying to tell men you don't need a girlfriend. He's the only one. Jordan Peterson, all these other people always talk about how important it is to have babies and da-da-da. Dr. K never says that. He never says that I've seen. And I've watched so much of his content that is so significantly unique to Dr. K. You know what I mean? Did I lose this TikTok? No, here it is.
Yeah, if you get your money up, you can get women, of course, but those women will probably only want you for your money, and you will know that, and you will also resent them. I don't know what system you can put in place to guarantee that somebody gets a partner, because that just doesn't happen unless you're forcing them, right? You gonna force them? What are we talking about here? To me, as someone who's diagnosed with a personality disorder, I have narcissistic personality disorder, right? And people hate narcissists. But I worked on myself. I've been in psychotherapy for 8 years. I've worked on myself physically, mentally, emotionally, all of the other good stuff, y'all. The system that needs to be put in place is to regulate people who are spewing this dumb shit that men are entitled to women. You're entitled to a partner and you have to do less work and they should be submissive and blah, 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 boo, 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 beep, 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 right? Because when you get rejected and you get angry, then you get online and you see that incel weirdo shit sometimes, you can see how easy it would be to fall into that path. Sorry, fellas, you got to work on yourself. We have to work on us.
I mean, I agree with this idea. I don't think that's, Exactly. I agree with all of that. Now, let's do this. Okay, let's go to the 2 podcasts that the people keep referencing. And I believe I have the timestamps correct. Okay, so let's watch this part first, and then we'll go back. So let's watch this part first.
Women, I think, don't need men as much as they used to. And I think this is in part because of the whole sexual revolution and appeal and feminism and all these things, which has...
Stephen Bartlett, I don't even know if that's his real opinion, but that's just like the bullshit talking point that everybody uses.
Tremendous upsides. I think that women and men are having less sex. They're getting married less. Men's attitude towards women has become a little bit more resentful in certain pockets of the internet. They perceive relationships with the other sex to be disposable more than ever before.
Men view women?
I would say both. And I think in part that's because of dating apps, just the perception of choice.
Okay.
The feeling that if you don't work out, there's another 1,000 people on my phone that I could give a shot to. I think the equation of a relationship, when we think about the investment it takes for it to work and what you get from it, people now perceive the equation not to be worth it.
Okay, I think...
I just want to stop right there. So again, when we think of relationships as thinking, like, it's not a transaction. I don't believe in transactional relationships. I don't believe in this idea that if you just do the right things, you get a return. But I do believe we should all work on ourselves, be introspective, extrospective, right? I do deeply believe this. And I do think the more introspective, extrospective you are, the more likely you are to be matched with a healthier partner, probably a high compatibility partner if you're really looking for the consciousness versus just like what's on a resume. And you're going to have that dream relationship. Most of the world has been settling forever. So this is our new wave of even dating being seen as like loving the consciousness. I mean, I go so far as to say, I don't even think you should be married or partnered unless it's like the consciousness. And I think there's about like, let's say 1 million people who fit that criteria. You might never meet any of them before you die. I think it's better to die single and it like having a fabulous life than it is to settle for a marriage. But lots of people go, Brittany, I love you, but I can't do life alone. I got to get married to somebody. And I'm like, okay. But I couldn't face that person and say, just so you know, I settled for you. Because I also am not going to lie to that person. And I would just feel so bad if I did that. But if you don't feel like you're settling, do it. But I think if you are truly introspective and truly deconstructing and honest with yourself, I don't know how you could, maybe you could explain it to me. I don't know how you in your head could think, I settled for this person, I don't even like them, or maybe this is the thing that annoys me, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm not going to do that, but you do it if you want to. But I also think there's the other thing that also works, which is long-time companionship, which I think is also valuable and much better. So if you're not going to marry, I'd rather you, okay, first, I don't think you should settle, but whatever. But I think another part of companionship that I think is also really valid is doing life with somebody that isn't a romantic partner. I think that's fine. I think that's fire, honestly. Like, I think that's great. If you can do it, do it. I couldn't do it. I would rather just be a solo girly. But if you're doing it, great. I love watching lesbians and gay men have babies together. It's one of my favorite relationship dynamics. But, everyone's different.
There's a lot of great stuff there. So you're like a fully formed adult man, right?
I think so. I hope
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Like you're like a man.
And yes, chat, for the people asking, like I am on a gender deconstruction journey and I find like gender fluid to be a very good label for me right now. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. We're going to come back and have a second part on gender and talk about the queer, gender fluid, non-binary perspective. Because again, this is just very binary. This is where the world is right now. We haven't even started to even bring the real conversation about gender into the conversation yet. We are just covering the basics about what the world is facing. And this is the dilemma, women versus men. Instead of, well, then what happens when you're in the other category where you're like, I don't care what your body looks like, bro. Are you in love with me or not? I don't even care what your label is. I don't care if it changes every 5 seconds, bro. Are we vibing or what? Like, just wait until that conversation shows up, okay?
You're not like a kid. You're not like a dude in early stages of development. You've got a career. You've got a relationship. You're buying a house. Like you are an adult.
Yeah.
So if I was an 18-year-old
Yeah.
and I came to you and let's say I'm your nephew or something like that. And I'm like, Stephen, fully formed adult, handsome man in relationship. I'm struggling to date.
Yeah.
What should I do?
You want me to give you advice? Yeah. Fuck. I think you should work on yourself.
Okay.
Especially as an 18-year-old man, because I think you need to, especially at that age, create some advantages. And so working on yourself could be learning, reading, going to the gym, building up the ability to provide for someone else and to protect somebody else. That's kind of really where I'd start. And again, that's biased because that's what I did at 18 years old.
Great.
I actually didn't date. I think I've been on 5 dates in my entire life.
Okay, so let's say I do that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm like, hey, I'm on this growth journey. And I'm sure you've encountered this, and there are going to be people in the audience who are like, the reason they're watching this podcast is because they're trying to do that. They're still not getting dates, right?
Yeah.
It's still hard to find a girlfriend. Then what do you have to say to them?
I would assume that the reason it's not working is because they're not in this frame of mind to find love.
And when a dude says, I'm trying to do everything right, what is the most common response that they get? Right? So like,
Try harder or like,
yeah, right? If you kind of like look at Twitter, what you'll find is people will be like, it's impossible to find a good woman. And then like men will be, let's say a dude says that, or a woman says that, it's on both sides. It's impossible to find a good man. And then people won't be like, yeah, it's impossible to find a good man. So maybe some people will be supportive. So you'll have a woman who says it's impossible to find a good man. You know, there are a lot of people who are like, yeah, like men are trash, fine. And then a lot of people will be like, you're not trying hard enough. You're not going to the right places. We as men get that a lot more because there's a societal bias that men don't need help, right? So if you look at like the comparison of scholarships, male only.
A societal bias is not women. Now, this is another part of my criticism for the girls. When I hear societal bias, I do not hear women. I hear patriarchy. What society? Like we're we're not even considered. Like they're not asking us questions. So when he says societal bias that men don't need help, yeah, patriarchy. I think women keep hearing Dr. K say society and they keep hearing women. And I don't know why you keep hearing women. Are we society all of a sudden? Do we get rights? Is there a female president? Are we the majority of politicians? Is the G20 summit mostly full of like women presidents? Am I missing something? Society is structural. Did the structure change? Are we in a matriarchy after all? Do you know what I'm saying? Like when Dr. K says society isn't working, I don't hear women. You know what I mean?
Scholarships versus female-only scholarships. There's about $4.9 billion worth of scholarships given out in the United States from private sources. Female scholarships outside of athletics are way higher than male scholarships. So if you look at athletics,
but it's not because women are being favored. Remember, as long as the red pill and patriarchy keeps telling men that these are liberal institutions with liberal agendas, men won't go to school, so they won't be getting scholarships. It's not like women are being handed out more scholarships and men aren't.
Number is way higher for men. But the really weird thing is that like 60% of people who graduate from college or in college somewhere in there are women. So the people who need more gender-based support are men, but we don't really do that. We're usually like, if a man has a problem, this is a man's problem to solve.
And what does men's gender-based support look like? To me, it looks like stop telling them to stop going to school. You are gender-based targeting men. The same men who say they're trying to help men are targeting men and telling them not to go to school. Isn't that amazing? They are literally targeting men saying, I'm here to help you, bro. Don't go to school. What?
Solve. And when a man goes out and says, I'm having trouble dating, but what people will say is men will say, work harder, try harder. You know, people will and people will really be nasty about it. They're like, do you not know how to talk to women? Stop being a creep, things like that. And then the other thing that we're really seeing is that there is.
I saw a TikTok from a guy who, I think he was a dentist. And he said in the 15 years of doing dentistry, I've never had a woman show up to an appointment and not know why she was there. But every single time a man will show up and he'll be like, hey, I'm here for my appointment. And when we ask why he's there, he goes, I don't know. My wife made it. And he goes, I cannot understand how this is happening. He's like, but this is real. 15 years. And it's not every single man literally, but he's saying he saw a pattern. And the pattern is real. And we're saying that's a problem. That's a gendered-based problem. Why are men not aware of why they're at the dentist? And that is a combination of things, including standards, but including how we raise people to think of like what is a priority, what is important, right? And so when we think about that, we have to really think about this as a gender-based problem, but not inherently because they're men, right?
Like this very, very like deep anger, entitlement.
Yes, chat. Don't go to school. Take my $3,000 course and that will teach you how to get rich, right? Chet says, does that happen? I thought that was more in the entrepreneurial hustle culture space, like Tony Robbins. No. In conservative bubbles, in churches, in Republican clubs, they always talk about how colleges are, gender studies, history, like colleges are brainwashing institutions. If you go to a college that gets a degree that does something. All of this messaging to men is not helpful. They're like encouraging men to like think of colleges as like brainwashing, like propagandist, like facilities, right? So they don't go because it's like kind of pussy. It's like, oh, women do this thing now and da 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 da. Listen, I was raised in that bubble where my parents would talk about how colleges were brainwashing institutions, but also be like, hey, why didn't you go to college? And I'm like, first of all, you didn't pay for college. Second of all, what college? And then third of all, like I did badly in school and you didn't get me help. So as an adult, like I have a deep fear of college, but also like what college? You told me my whole life college was bullshit unless it was a Catholic college. Now, if it was a Catholic college, my parents were like, please go there. Please go. We'll pay. With what money, girl? My parents were the over-promising parents who would say, we'll pay for college, but they couldn't afford to pay for 10 kids' college. So even if all 10 of us went to Catholic college, who are you going to pay for? Do you know what I mean? Come on now.
There's like this incel movement. There's this like alpha male, beta male kind of thing. And I don't know if you kind of get this, but there's like a deep sense of like anger, right? There's like
No. Chad says, to your point, if it's true, most college scams you into crippling debt, but the answer is not to opt out and scam by. No. What are you saying here? Most colleges are not scamming you into crippling debt. Most loan officers, most banks are scamming you into fucking student debt. Okay, the propaganda we get by letting 18-year-olds sign loans that they can't even afford. Most people who are supposed to suddenly know what the hell they're supposed to do at 18 are getting out loans for college degrees they don't even want in 10 years, right? So like when you think about why people get loans, at first it's predatory. And second of all, it also comes from this desire to say, go to college and your life will work out. But lots of people go to college and their life doesn't work out. The issue isn't one thing, it's all of the things. You have to go to college with intention and you have to decide why you're there. You have to be smart with how you spend your money. It's okay to wait 10 years before you go to school. It's also okay to go to right away if you're sure about what you want to do. Like all of these things are different, right? Okay, Chad says, but we need loans because colleges are charging too much. But they used to be free. Why are they charging you now? Because Republicans and racism. Let's go back down to the basics. Why aren't colleges free anymore? White people. We're going to talk about race tomorrow. The system isn't working. We should want an educated population. We should want all of our people in school. We should make the path to school so fucking easy for people, and we should get people ready and set up for a good future. We're not doing that, right? Okay? Oh yeah, next week. Wait, what's today? Fuck. Oh yeah, fuck, the week's over. Next week, you're right, chat. Next week we'll cover racism. And then we'll do ableism. And then we'll do the rest of them. Oh, I want to do it now. Okay. So yeah, you know what I'm saying? So when we have these conversations, this series is going back down to the basics. Why did these things happen? So we want a better society, but we're not we're not willing to go down to the root of the problem. And I'm saying, let's get down to the root and then move forward. So what I do is I look for my goal, then I go back to the bottom and I try to understand what's happening. And then I try to figure out, okay, within the schema of this thing, how do I get to my goal? Let me draw you a picture. Hold on. Let me draw you a picture. Okay, so this is the goal. Okay, this is the goal. This is where we want to be. But we're down here, okay? We're down here. And we have to go through all of this to get to our goal. So our responsibility now is not to think we're going to fix this, okay? Because we can't fix this overnight. Instead, we're going to figure out how to, within our ethical framework, get where we need to go in a way that allows us to face ourselves, sleep at night, and harm reduce. And whatever it takes, no matter how long it takes, no matter where it takes us, we end up at our goal. Okay? But you cannot eradicate from the reality that you have to face this crazy massive bullshit. And the massive bullshit is just the reality of being a biological creature evolved over billions of years on a planet. Sitting in floating in the universe. Blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I say episode 1 of this series was going back down to why you exist. And like, what does it mean? This is the world. Like, the world's a reflection of us as a whole. So we can't fix things overnight, but that doesn't mean we don't keep trying. And it doesn't mean that we don't make an attempt. And it doesn't mean that, XYZ. I just think we keep doing this thing where we do this thing where we think like it's too big, it's too intense, so we shouldn't do it. And I'm saying we should do it. It is intense and the outcome won't be what you think it is. We're not going to dismantle capitalism tomorrow and patriarchy. We're not going to stop racism from existing tomorrow. But it doesn't mean we should be racist. It doesn't mean we shouldn't deconstruct. We're not going to give up. Just like with retirement. Guys, I'm telling you right now, if I could go back and change my life, I would put $100 in a high yield savings account right the fuck now every month. Or I would put it in my Roth IRA. I would do absolutely anything possible. And if you're concerned about putting money in your Roth, that might end up going to companies that are supporting ICE or something like that. There are progressive YouTubers that exist who tell you what to put your money into that are like the high returns over 30 years that also don't end up giving money to ICE. And I just discovered this recently because I was interested in it because there's a lot of ethical problems around investing. So I was like, can I invest without supporting bad things? Okay. And what does that look like? Harm reduction. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to be something. Because everything is kind of bad in its own way. There's no, everything's kind of fucked. But okay, so the idea is like, yes, the world feels crazy right now, but that doesn't mean you in 30 years isn't going to really like thank you for doing the work now. Okay, whatever that looks like. Okay, let's go to this section of the same podcast. Can society take responsibility? Okay, look at this. Just a little bit.
I mean, there's a lot that I'm thinking about. The first is, if we go back up to your point about this being a bit of an extinction event, it poses a question about like, what do you do about that? Mm-hmm. You said also people are trying to implement the advice, but it's not working. Mm-hmm. Now, does that mean that that's a question of like motivation, discipline? Is it bad advice? What do we do there? And the third, I guess, question that comes to mind is, does society have a responsibility to intervene in some way to correct this?
So I think, does society have a responsibility? I don't think that is a real thing. So I have never seen society take a responsibility.
Ooh, girl, you better listen. That's what I'm saying. This is the, see how the TikTokers, this is the context. This is such a specific answer.
I don't think society can take a responsibility, right? So if like how do I get society? Like, who do I talk to?
But if you think about other people that are in marginalized groups, society intervenes to make the world,
society?
The governments and the way that we make our laws and the way that we give out money and grants and the way that we shape our communities.
Yeah, so I understand the question, but I think like this, and this is just the way that I think. So if I ask you what is society, you say the government. And then who is the government? What is the government? It's people.
Yeah.
So I think this comes down to, forget about societal responsibility. And I think this is one of the problems, not to say that it is the problem, but this is just the way that I think. There was a case, I don't remember her name, of a woman who's being sexually assaulted in public, like on a street at nighttime. And there were a bunch of neighbors who were like aware that the sexual assault was happening, and no one called for help. And the reason no one called for help is because everyone assumed that somebody else would call for help.
So this is the bystander effect. We've talked about it in the past. There's some detail about whether that exactly happened, the way that it exactly happened, because allegedly some people did call for help. But I do think learning this made me more call for help. Once I learned this story years and years ago, it actually forced me to call for help a lot more often than I ever did. So I don't know if the exact story is as true as it is, but it inspired me to call 911 for emergencies a lot more for people, while taking into consideration police brutality and dangers about calling the police. But it did make me more aware if sometimes people need help, or even like keeping an eye on people, or even like noticing, like, do I need to say something,
Whose problem is it? Oh, society should fix this. And the moment that we say society
yeah, the moment you say society should fix it, you're taking away the responsibility from yourself. And if everybody did that, then who is society, right?
Should fix this, we stop taking individual responsibility. In the moment that we...
So the word individual triggers a lot of people because conservatives use it as a gotcha, but fuck conservatives. But even though they're intuitionally correct, they're not doing the work. If we all collectively say it's society's responsibility and it's never us, then nothing gets done. This is why I say you cannot sit here and think you're the only good person on the planet. If you think you're the good one and everyone else is the bad one, then what does that say about the world? What does that say about you and your place in the world, right? Even my level system, fives are not, being a 5 isn't about being better than everybody else. It's about your relationship with existence, your sense of responsibility, your framework of understanding of who you are in relation to yourself and everything outside of yourself. It forces you to go, hold on, it's me. I got to work on me, right? Because I am a reflection of the world. The world's a reflection of us as a whole. And as a whole, we're not doing too good.
Stop taking individual responsibility. Like, unless someone shows up and runs for office and says, my goal is to do this, which by the way is happening in like South Korea. So like conservatives that are very like, there's this huge tension in South Korea right now between men and women, and this 4B movement where women are like, we're not going to have kids anymore. And then there's like this conservative kind of like pro-masculine kind of movement that is moving into government and says like, this needs to change. And we see governments responding to this mating crisis. Right. So I think like China is now paying people to have children. So there's all kinds of like moves that are happening. So is it society's responsibility? Like, I don't know. So I think if society doesn't do anything, what's going to happen will be really simple. And that's what I mean by we're witnessing a mass extinction event. We have a group of young men who are somewhere between 15 to 50 who will just never procreate. And then they will literally die out, right? Their genes will not be passed on. And for the people who do procreate, they will have been adapted to the post-COVID world.
Yeah.
Right? So they know how to form, they succeed on Tinder. Whereas like if you go and you look at like, if you go to like some kind of senior event and you look at all the people who have grandkids, half the men there would not have succeeded on Tinder.
Yeah.
Right? And this is something that really like shocks people when I kind of tell them this, but if you want to see like who's succeeding, it's not the dudes on Tinder who are getting laid 15 times. Like go to like I mean, this is sometimes a little creepy, but like if you go to a playground, you're going to see like a lot of like average looking men with like average looking dad bods, which with average median incomes who are like having kids. And that's what's really happening. But even those men.
So when women say, like Talia, we covered her in the first half of this, saying, I'm a pretty girl and I love myself and you're just mad I think I'm pretty. And also men who are broke are losers and, men have to make money and men are the providers and men buy you things. It's like women want to talk about deconstructing patriarchy, but they still want their man to buy them a designer bag. Where do you think they have the capital for that designer bag, girl? Come on now.
Are adapted in some way, right? Because they're not exceptionally attractive. They're not exceptionally rich, but they have something going on in their psychological makeup, which allows them to form bonds and procreate.
Chad says my genes are going to die out with me, and that's okay. It's the concern is to pass on genes. Always felt really odd. I think if I'm going to be honest, I can't wait for the world to stop talking about it like genes being passed on. Though I do think if you zoom out far enough, we are just like little fucking little humpers. We're little rabbits just like fucking and making babies. And I do kind of think that's like the lowest, kind of one of the lower parts of our introspection is only thinking about procreation. But I also think it's interesting that people who are less educated procreate more. Do you know what I'm saying? If your only concern is making babies, then some part of that is a part of a lack of introspection and education. And then it begs the question, like, are smarter people just not having babies? Well, not exactly. Like, smart people do have babies, but also, why do they have babies? Listen, like I said, if the economy was better, more people would be having babies. We have to imagine a lot of people are also married and coupled, and they can't afford babies. So it's also, it's not wrong for people to want babies, but I think we also should talk about legacy and how like legacy needs to be deconstructed. Having babies for fun needs to be deconstructed. Like this idea that like, I have a baby because it's cute or it's what it's supposed to do. We have so much work to do is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like we have so much work to do in this regard, and it's not just men. Okay? Women also need to ask themselves why they're having babies. Okay, it's a very important question. It's very important.
You just said that a huge amount of men between the age of 15 and 50 will not pass on their genes. They will effectively die out of the gene mating pool. So people will hear that and many people will go, well, that's evolution.
Yeah.
But I want to understand if there's a counterpoint to that. Should society intervene? Why is, in the short term, we're going to have a lot of men who are disillusioned, that become incels, find themselves in pockets of the internet, are resentful, all those kinds of things. But should society intervene to course correct that? Should we put systems in place to make sure that those men meet partners?
I'm gonna answer that question with a question.
Okay.
If, let's say, a huge swath of people are dying out from cancer, should we intervene with that?
Yes.
If a huge swath of people are dying out from like a virus, should we intervene
100%,
with that?
yes.
If a huge swath of people are dying out from genocide, should we intervene with that?
Yes.
So I think
trick question. Listen to what he said. Him putting genocide in that is so pointed because most of the people watching this podcast probably don't give a fuck about it. And he's saying, if you have to just, do you not see how important this is? This is such a big deal. Okay, I'm going to explain this. This is how I see what he just said. He just said, if you care about people, we want to fight cancer and genocide. Because you have to understand the same people that are worried about their genes ending, these men who are worried don't give a fuck about Palestinians or Sudanese or any of these people being genocided. So he's saying, you care about this, but do you also care about this? He's saying if we want to, he's not pointing, he's not saying gotcha, but it is a psychological gotcha. And that's why he's not red pill. That's why he's not conservative. That's why when he says certain things, he is signaling very heavy, a very specific thing that I think gets so missed. I really think it gets so missed in the world because imagine we're openly having a conversation about, is genocide bad? Yes. But the fact that we're even asking the question. So yeah, I agree with him. We should be concerned about this baby crisis in the same way we should be worried about genocide. They're both an indication that something is going terribly wrong. The solution, though, is what we're arguing about, right? Or the why.
Two important things. One
It's
is
slightly
that-
different though, isn't it? Because it's whether
so one is about death,
yeah.
right? So one is like if a human being is dying, we should step in. But natural selection isn't necessarily about death. This is what's really tricky about it. This is why I think it gets hard. Natural selection is about passing on your genes.
Yeah.
Right? It's about creating viable offspring. And this is where if someone, and I think we also say yes, like if there's, a couple.
And most of the conservatives you meet, they don't care if they have disabled kids, guys. So they're not even thinking about it from some like true eugenics, perfect genes perspective. They're thinking about it as like God's children or making souls for Jesus, or they're not even thinking about the whole lane of genetic. That's why when this is what happened in the boy bubble. The boy bubble's stupid. The boy bubble use big words that sound science to sound smart. Boy bubble say genes and think all of a sudden they know anything about science. Boy bubble use big words, sound stupid, or sound smart but stupid, okay? They literally talk about genes as if they know anything about genetics. And that's the point. Boys co-opt like smart people language to sound like they know what they're talking about when realistically they do not care. And that's the point. They do not know. So that's why when I hear them have these conversations, I'm like, you don't even know anything about genetics. You're not even asking a real question.
That wants to have a child and that child has cystic fibrosis, should we help that couple? Should we help a couple procreate? We also say yes.
Yeah.
So that's why we have IVF and things like that. So I think that the tricky thing about the reason that this is different is because that's a couple. If a woman is unable to have kids, even if we say if a man is unable to have kids, should we medically intervene so that they're capable of having kids? Yes. Right? So if we're talking about a couple, if we're talking about a human being and there's a medical problem, or if we're talking about protecting people from death, the answer is yes. This is a new question, which is, do people have the right, and I don't know if right is, maybe that's the right word, to reproduce? And this is what's so challenging about it is like the
legally, yes. Morally, no. Legally, yes. You have the right to procreate and produce offspring. Morally, ethically, girl. Okay.
answer is basically no, because for men, that requires the consent of someone else. And my right.
Oh, don't you love how none of the people that were criticizing Dr. K bothered to add in this section here?
The answer is basically no, because for men, that requires the consent of someone else. And my right to reproduce never trumps someone's right to not want to reproduce with me. Yeah. I think we sort of accept that, right? That's correct. Now, this is where the fundamental biological difference comes in, because a woman doesn't need.
So all of these people you know what I'm saying? He is literally working so hard to be the one voice in this space who's trying to tell men, I hear you, I see you. This still isn't the answer. This is the answer. And I'm just saying, now you make me look like a woman who's out here defending a man so hard. But that's because your assessment and criticism of him is wrong. If I'm wrong, call me out. But I feel like he's doing everything possible to put the most good and progressive ideas into these men's brains in a way that they'll hear. And how could you hear him say this and be like, he thinks women should do all the work? He hasn't even talked about women once. He's literally only talking about the problem and possible solutions.
A man to reproduce, I can go to a sperm bank. And once again, you can argue that you can get laid if you want to, but that hasn't been my experience. I think women struggle with loneliness and finding sexual partners and stuff quite a bit.
Women also suffer from loneliness
as well.
The patriarchal desire to make the loneliness epidemic about men, and women engaging with men are only lonely and women aren't, is totally a disregard to the fact that lots of women are lonely and are so desperate for everything. Like, I have so many friends of mine who are women who have so many friends, but they're so lonely. And we're just ignoring them because they have a social life and they have degrees and they have a house and they have all these great things. But guys, they're lonely. And women are falling for it. Women are falling into the rhetoric that women are great with community and that women aren't suffering and that they're suffering. This is why I say stop falling for this rhetoric that women are great and we're perfect and we're not suffering. We're all suffering. Yes, we have better solutions and we have found ways to be better, but we are still suffering. Again, it's like this weird thing that we do together as a community in the binary men and women bubbles, where it's like, well, if men just wanted to be not lonely, call your buddies and ask how you're doing. Yes. Then why are all my girlfriends who have that access still lonely? Because they haven't deconstructed partnership. They haven't deconstructed this. They haven't deconstructed this. It's not just having friends. It's not just having a job or a college education or a house. Okay?
Really bad perception on the internet. So I think this is like a new problem for society, which is why it hasn't been solved. Now, that's why the track that I take, I don't know what the societal answer is. I'm not a sociologist. So what I have found, thankfully, we don't need to solve, or I don't think we need to solve that problem. Does it need to be solved? Sure. Should someone solve it? I think so. But I think what I found works really well is that usually the problem that these men are failing to adapt to can be fixed. But the problem is that the solutions that work for the people who are successful will not work for the people who are unsuccessful.
Okay, so now he's going to talk about that clip I showed you earlier where it's like, I'm married and my solution won't work. We already watched that, okay? Is this the right clip? I think did we already go through this?
Male crisis. We've talked about getting more in touch with yourselves. Is
Did
there
we watch
anything
this?
else? Do we need more positive role models, or is it really not about the external at all?
No, we didn't watch. Okay, listen.
So I think all that stuff is true. So we know that, for example, like
This is from the podcast where he said, you need to hug men more.
there's like a loneliness crisis and things like that. I think that it's not just role models, like we need individual responsibility. So like, for example, everyone will say, yeah, like I know it's a real tragedy that men don't have friends, but it's not my job to fix. I will hear this from both men and women, that like it's a real tragedy, but it's not my responsibility. It's sad that this thing happened, but it's not my which makes sense, right? No human being is responsible for another human being. But then the question kind of becomes like, okay, let's play that tape through to the end. What happens to that person? Whose responsibility is it? So if you look at a lot of what's going on with men right now, it's loneliness, it's isolation, it's touch starvation, it's suicidality.
Sexlessness as well.
Sexlessness. And it's no individual.
So when people hear touch starvation, that is separate from sex. I don't think people understand. This is why when I came out of conservatism, which I come from a very physical family, okay, we wrestle, we hang out, we're always like, I come from a pretty physical family. And the few siblings in the family who do not like to be touched will tell you our family is very like, ugh. Anyway, my friends, after I left conservatism and joined more friend groups, cuddle piles, hangouts, sleepovers, showering together, the most physical cuddle, puppy cuddle. It was great. It was just so great. And it was so clear too that there was, you have to figure out how to do it with the right people and how to be safe about it. But that feeling of being able to hug someone and hold somebody and have it be like safe and consensual and platonic and or sometimes sexual, but mostly platonic, to have the relationship with people that says like, can you give me a hug? Can you humanize me? That's why, listen, that's why I say in situations in which I really hate somebody for their thoughts, not hate somebody, but like, let's say I really hate this guy's like beliefs. Okay. In a moment of humanity, I might still give them a hug, but the hug has to be the right kind of hug from the right kind of place. A man coming up to me and saying, can I have a hug? No, bro, go away, you pervert. Seeing somebody in pain, seeing somebody really going through it and saying like, hey, bro, do you need a hug? And then being like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm there for you, bro. I'll hug you. Okay? I don't know you. I don't know your beliefs. Maybe I see you and I think I don't like you, but I'll hug you. Okay? And I cannot tell you as somebody who has always been, because I, who I am, the girl who people will be like, bro, I need a hug. I'm like, okay. And like, they're really, when they're upset, they come to, it's again, I think there is a maturity that is lacking, a seriousness that is lacking in our commentary. And I am working every day to be that person in the future, but I'm not her right now. Okay. I'm just not smart enough or mature enough. I'm not wise enough. And I see Dr. K and I think like, yeah, there's something really special here. that the world just wants to kill. The world wants to kill Dr. K's work. It wants to snuff him out. It wants to accuse him of so many things. And I see him and I'm like, he's one of the only voices I see that I'm like, this might be a lot. Him, Vervaeke, Britt Hartley. Like, I think there's something really unique about these content creators. These people who, by the way, are first and foremost professionals in their field and then content creators. I think that's important. Okay. And I do think that these are the people, and I'm not saying you have to be a professional in your field, but I'm saying you have to have something that's yours. So for me, it's the levels. Like, I know it might seem stupid to the internet, but it's very serious to me in the sense that I think it's something really real. I think I'm going to die. And I think in 50 to 1,000 years, somebody's going to say, there once was a person who lived who had this one thing and it really helped me. And I think that's really significant. But I don't think it's about legacy. I don't care if anyone ever remembers my name, but I think I didn't invent it. I discovered something that seems to be true for many people around the world. And I want to be one of the people that gets it out there. But I don't, I'm working on it. So what I'm doing is I'm creating something outside of myself. And that's what all these people did. They've been creating things outside of themselves. Vervaeke created The Meaning Crisis. Dr. K has Healthy Gamer. Britt Hartley has all of the series and work she's doing. That's why I say, like, you need to create something out of yourself. And that's why people make babies. But I'm saying, hear me out, maybe babies, but also maybe books, but also maybe art, but also maybe a play, but also maybe food, maybe a sculpture, maybe a land, maybe something. We need to create, to harm reduce, to bring something beautiful into the world. I'm not, I don't want you to create things like, I shot a car into space. Okay, sit down, Elon. Okay, I created Grok, not helping. You have to also create something that helps bring down, like, the harm reduction. We want to, or the bad. We want to bring down the bad, right? Okay, back to Dr. K.
Person's responsibility. But the real problem with this is that these are not problems that men can solve on their own. This is exactly why this is the problem that men are experiencing. Because as men, we are taught to be independent. We are taught to be, you should fix everything on your own.
And without putting them on a pedestal, right? Because Chad says, great lesson I learned from you is to look at adults you respect and take from them as their life is proof of their success. 100. And don't pedestal them. Don't pedestal these people, because Dr. K will say wrong things. Vervaeke will say wrong things. Britt Hartley will say wrong things. I will say wrong things. Do not pedestal them. Okay? But also,
your own. And so men have fixed all of the things that we can fix on our own. The only thing that's left is the things that we must rely on other people for, right? So no one's complaining about, a lot of men are obese, but there's not like an obesity, there's a crisis, but that's not what's bothering people. That's not where we're losing the war. We're not losing the war on baldness, right? So there are lots of things as a man that you can fix in your own life. It's just the real challenge is that no one is willing to take responsibility for any level of connection with men. And so that's not something that is going to get fixed, because you need another human being to hug you. Like, you can't.
This reminds me of, I think everyone would benefit from reading Bell Hooks, All About Love, because of the conversations around toxicity and abuse and love. I think everybody would benefit from it. But even in that book, Bell Hooks says some things that I'm like, you know what I mean? And I don't blame her. She's a product of her time. But also, we want to correct it. But I think people should start pushing that book towards men, because I think it's helpful. But, that's a good example too. Love Bell Hooks. Great work. And that's the point. And also, so know that, like, you calling me out and you saying, Britt, I think you missed the mark, you might be totally correct. Okay? You might be totally correct. Right? Chez says, I love Brittany, Dr. K content girl. When are you going to have him on have him on the live stream? I mean, maybe. I have a lot of social anxiety now, guys. I have a lot of anxiety over collaborations. But yeah, maybe. I was thinking about it. I don't know.
Hug yourself. It just doesn't work.
I definitely have a great topic for him planned. I'm just fighting my own anxieties.
So my area of focus tends to be on introspection, because I think that's like really, really powerful, but there's all kinds of other stuff that's important. Mentorship, role models, all that kind of stuff. But I think ultimately through introspection.
Oh, thank you, chat. Says Bell Hooks is The Will to Change is the book where she really directly addresses patriarchy in men. There you go. Book recommendation.
You can attain complete peace, no matter who you are.
Oh, hold on. Let's rewind
all that kind of stuff. But I think ultimately through introspection, you can attain complete peace, no matter who you are, what you're.
100%. Now, I had been saying this years before I got on the Dr. K train, which is why I'm on the Dr. K train, because he says what I say, and I think I'm right. Introspection is the key. Extrospection, the key. But remember, everybody introspects. We're talking about degrees now. The degree in which you introspect is the degree in which you heal. And the extrospection is an exploration. It's like a practice. It's kind of like a verb. It's an action. It's a process, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process.
What your path is, circumstances. I think it's kind of like the silver bullet, which is what the Buddha discovered.
So are you saying there that as a society, we should take on more of the responsibility for some of these big fundamental issues that men and people in crisis can't solve for themselves?
Subtly, no. Not a society. Because as a society, who's part? No, I mean you. I mean, your listeners as individuals need to take responsibility. And it's not that you have to take responsibility. It's not fair to you to be responsible for someone else. But unless everyone who's listening to this podcast goes out and literally hugs a man, no.
When he says everyone listening to this podcast, guys, it's like 90% men listening to this podcast, if not more. Remember that. I think Dr. K is smart enough to know that. I do. I think he is aware of exactly who's listening to him. And so when women who don't watch this pod and don't watch Dr. K make it about them, they are missing the point that he's not talking to you, girl. Be quiet. He's not talking to you. And so, like, when you say, I can't believe he's saying this, he's not talking to you. And what you're doing is, because men, listen, if the men who are in these positions are already fucking ruminating and looping on their fucking destruction, because remember, he's a doctor, his job is to heal people regardless of who they are, okay? Then when he says this, he can't say men should hug other men. Because now it's going to sound like, oh, so you're saying men are responsible. Even if it might be true, this is why I couldn't do his job. Because I would say that. I'd be like, men have to start being with men. But see, when I say it, I just sound like a woman who's being like, men. And then men get defensive and they don't want to hear it and they can't deconstruct. Guys, if they're already misogynist, they don't want to listen to me. And if they already, like, you know what I'm saying? So when Dr. K says it, so even if Dr. K said men should hug other men, they're more likely to hear him. Right? So like it's all dependent on what your actual goal is. And again, his goal is to target like some of the most vulnerable and I think neglected. If you want you want to hear controversial truth? I think incels in particular and a lot of men are deeply neglected. To even identify as an incel means you were so deeply neglected as a child. Because children who are not deeply neglected do not go down the incel route. Remember when Kidology identified as a femcel for a second? She was deeply neglected as a child. And she's a woman, a lesbian, identifying as a femcel. And I'm like, girl. And she was adopted. She had that horrible situation about being adopted by a white man, a whole thing, da-da-da-da-da. Because otherwise, why would you identify as that? It's not a good identifier. It's not even an empowering label. It's literally so bad for your mental health to identify as a incel. But by the way, just a reminder to new people in my audience, fun fact, the word incel co-opted. A lesbian created it. A lesbian created it to explain a phenomenon she was having as a lesbian who was struggling to date in a homophobic society, incel. Then it got co-opted by men, which of course they did, and now it's a man term. And now it is what it is. But for the record, a lesbian created it. And she was really making an amazing commentary on homophobia in society. Ruined by men. But okay, whatever. You know, it is what it is. Look it up. It's such a good story, but it is what it is.
No one else is going to do it. Because if you don't
words change, people co-opt them, it's over.
Do it, who's going to do it? You can't rely on society. We've been relying on society to fix the problem. It's not working. Society can't do shit.
So you're saying me? Forget
yes.
society. Don't wait for government to have some kind of intervention.
How's it working out?
Not great. I mean, the direction of travel as it relates to these sort of
and it's funny that men will say it's because we live in a matriarchy. We don't live in a matriarchy, girls. Come on.
key issues like loneliness are only getting worse and worse. Suicidality seems to be getting worse and worse. Mm-hmm. Now you've got this young generation of women.
Listen to this. Listen to this part that none of the women who clipped him and none of the men who clipped him added in either. Because again, I don't know if they're coming back and watching the full podcast or watching his work. Listen to this.
Well, that are exploding in their suicidality.
Yes.
Young women. I think it's the fastest growing group at the moment, if my stats are correct there.
Yeah. So we have one really interesting thing is that men and women are becoming more equal in many ways, but in unfortunate ways. So female suicidality is getting worse. We're also seeing like male body dysmorphia on the rise. And I suspect it's way worse than we realize. But I think that what we're starting to see is less of a discrepancy in gender-related health issues. So the things that used to be predominantly men are now women are catching up, which is a bad thing. And things that were predominantly women, now men are catching up. So body dysmorphia in men, addictions in women are on the rise. So yes, there's things are getting worse.
Exactly. Things are getting worse, which is why he gives a prescription of introspection. I give a suggestion of introspection. To prescribe is too much for me, but I will say introspection. Maybe he's not even making a prescription. He might just be making a suggestion. Introspection. Therapy without introspection, useless. You still have to introspect, girls. Okay. Now, do you understand the vibes? Yes, all of us are locked into the vibes. Okay. Let's go back. Okay. This is what I think they think Dr. K is. Oops, hold on.
Ladies, men do not care about your career, ladies. I'm sorry, they just don't. They will date a waitress at Applebee's over a corporate executive if they treat them right and make their lives easier.
This is like the red pill rhetoric, but yet look at the way the man who, this is Chris Williamson, look at the way his guest responds to this comment, which I think is interesting and kind of is more realistic. Red pillars are not realistic. Their data is wrong and they're using the data wrong. But listen to this.
What does the science say about this?
Well, the men don't care about your career. It kind of depends on what men you're talking about. If you're talking about successful men, they clearly do. I mean, there's no...
Listen to this. This guest, I don't know who he is, but he's saying something very important because remember, there's a whole bubble that says men don't care about what you do, men don't care about this, but real successful men, real educated men, oh, their women are educated. Their women have status. If your woman is just a trophy and it's just about looks, then it's not family legacy. This is the difference between new rich and old money. New money is like the version of the man who says he doesn't care if you're a waitress. Old money is like, did you go to Harvard? Did you go to Yale? Who are your parents? Who are your grandparents?
No, like this whole meme of successful men will date what did you say, a waitress? Applebee's waitress. Okay. So the successful men will date an Applebee's waitress. Doesn't line up with the data that richer men tend to select richer women. More educated men tend to select more educated women. Richer women appear basically immune to the decline in marriage that has transpired since the 1970s. So when you look at this data holistically, it doesn't seem to be the case that there is a effect of men selecting downward for youth and beauty.
Okay. If something is really well liked, if there's a general consensus, okay, oh God, let him finish. I'll explain.
And whatnot at the
trading
expense,
wealth for looks.
Yeah, at the expense of career and education. When you look at the most successful men, they tend to pair up with the most successful women.
Men do not.
Okay, now, which is why, when people say, "Oh, Bill Gates' wife, like she's only rich because Bill Gates," these women are very successful. Okay. Now let me give this. Okay. This again, I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings because I am with you in this. Listen to me. We are the same. So I'm not hurting your feelings because we are the same. Remember this. Okay. Whoa, Brittany. Rich, okay, wealthy people live here. Okay. We live here. Okay, this is us. And then the truly impoverished live down here. Okay, the truly impoverished. They're not even in the picture. You can't even see them. Okay, that's sad. Hold on. You can't even see them. They're way down here, okay? Okay. If there is a product in the universe, let's say a romantic movie or a TV show that shows you the fantasy of the ultra rich and wealthy marrying the girl who works at Starbucks, understand they are selling you a fantasy. They are not interested in you, nor will it ever be you, because they are marrying in a completely different bubble than you, at a completely different level. And the same way, somebody in chat asked me this one time. They said, how do I become a nanny to like really wealthy families? And I said, oh, Habibi, you are dirt on their shoe. I was a professional nanny. Okay. I would get my licenses. I would take safety classes. I had an amazing resume for a middle-class nanny. They would never even look at me. I am not a college graduate. I do not have a degree. I do not have XYZ. Not only do wealthy families not just pick any nanny, but the nanny usually has to come from a particular background. With peace and love, that's okay. That's not you. All of these boys in these bubbles who are trying so hard to be one of the rich guys, they're trying to get out of this middle place here, and they make fun of women in the same way women fantasize about the rich man coming into the deli and then picking them out of the line while they're wearing a hairnet. Men fantasize about being the billionaire. Men fantasize about rich guys being like, you want to come hang out on my yacht, bro? And then them becoming one of the peers. Like, you are not equals to these men in these bubbles. And I'm not saying you want to be either. I'm saying that's the facade, though. As long as you chase validation from these bubbles that think of you as less, you're not deconstructing the system as it is. You're not even asking yourself, wait, why do I even want to be wealthy? Same for women that chase prominence in capitalism. Wait, is being a girl boss being just as fucking unethical and evil as these men? No. That's the problem, though. Women were sold lean in feminism. I was sold it. I bought it. I snorted it like cocaine, like it was the 80s and I was in a bathroom. Okay. And I thought, yeah, the goal is to be wealthy. The goal is to be rich. Not like, 2 million at retirement, 6 million at retirement, a nice little payout rich. I thought my goal was to be a billionaire. I thought, yeah, that must be what it is. And then I was like, this does not make me happy. Pursuing this makes me miserable. I don't have any connections in these bubbles. Why do I think this is my life that I want? And then I was like, this isn't the life I want, is it? And it took a while for me to realize, like, yeah, this isn't joy, but I can see why people think it is. And this is why I say, okay, money is not the answer. Money isn't going to bring you fulfillment or joy. And I know you think it does, because why wouldn't you? You don't have any and the rent is due. But when you have enough to pay rent, you have enough to buy your house, you have enough to do all these things. And by the way, for the record, I don't have enough money to buy a house yet, but I'm telling you right now, money's not the answer. I'm already good, because the answer was that loneliness epidemic. The answer was that relationship with self. That answer was introspection. Guys, I'm telling you right now, I struggle with money the way everyone who's an adult struggles with money. You have a nice job. It's pretty secure. You're making a decent income, but man, you still got to save. You still got a budget. You got to think about what you buy. Yeah, I'm in that bubble. It's okay, but I'm not lonely anymore. My sense of meaning is solid. I know what I'm doing in the universe. Everything is good. And yet I am not rich. I don't have 6 months worth of savings. I have no investments. I have none of that yet. And yet I'm vibing. And I'm vibing because the work that I've been doing is the work that I think is causing all of the problems in the world, which is like the introspection, the deconstruction, the therapy, the really understanding that like you really are having an experience. And I think that's the conversation that I want to always get people down to, is like all of these bubbles that you're so busy trying to get out of or get into, all of these like K-dramas that we love to watch, all of these romance stories and everything, all of this advice on these Menosphere podcasts, all of these women who I think have good intentions but are making kind of slop content. I said what I said. Okay, I get it. I'm there too. We're just YouTubers at the end of the day, but isn't everyone just whatever at the end of the day? We're all trying to do our best, but we are missing the forest for the trees. We are not deeply understanding the issue at hand. And there's some really deep issue at hand that I think is obviously a meaning crisis. And it is not going to be fixed ultimately by the gender war, but I don't blame you for engaging in the gender war. It pays bills, it feels good, and honestly, it's justified. In a world that's so patriarchal, it feels really fucking justified to be like, fuck all men. But also, I hope when we're not just reacting to evil men on the internet and we go home to our families, we actually do love people who happen to be men. And, maybe you're a man. You don't know. But also, I think this comes from my perspective as a queer person, as a gender fluidity kind of person, where at this point, I just can't imagine at home. At work, it's different, but I could not imagine coming home and looking at my partner and just, thinking bad of them because they happen to be a man. And I do think you internalize these things, whether you think so or not. But again, this conversation doesn't feel safe to have because some red pillar's got to see my content and be like, see, Brittany cares, Brittany gets it, fuck off. But that's the thing. Can we not have a real conversation? Pretend a man isn't listening. Pretend there are no men who could ever hear this conversation. Can we be honest and say, like, girl, you know you don't want to go to bed hating men. But also, I understand why you're angry. Men as a system fucking suck. And also, right? The problem is that we don't want men to hear us. Because they're not going to hear the right message. What they're going to hear is, see, women do want men. See, women like us. See, maybe if I neg her more, maybe if I call her fat one more time, that will be it and she'll put out. And that's really the problem, right? Chat says, for me, men are guilty until proven innocent. And I think that's a trauma response. I think living in a world where men are guilty until they're proven innocent is a response to the predatory systems at play that maintain patriarchy, that create misogyny, that create harm. But if you introspect and really meditate, we're all just animals on a planet. That's like saying all dogs are bad dogs or all dogs are like gonna kill me until proven otherwise. You know what I mean? It's like, no, like, or all pit bulls. How about pit bulls, since they get such a bad rap? All pit bulls are a threat to my life until proven otherwise. I mean, I guess if you want to go through life thinking like that, but I don't really think like that. You know what I mean? But I think that takes a long time. Like, you have to deconstruct it, right? Chat said, should I not be that way? Why is it wrong? Okay, well, this is a back to basics conversation, right? Let's ask ourselves some questions. When children are born, do we want to assign actions to their gender? Do we want to say, because you are born a boy, you are guilty until proven innocent? Is that a prescription we'd like to make on children? Okay, you said no. Okay, well, why not? Didn't you just say men are guilty until proven innocent? What are men? Men are boys, right? Who internalize the world around them and are shaped by the world around them, right? So if men are shaped by the world around them and they're getting information, but they're not understanding it, not to mention a layer of this is also just like comprehension, right? When we talk and we have a conversation about it, right? Chet said, because they're blank slates, men are adults. Okay, children are not blank slates. That's actually a misconception. They come into the world with a whole makeup all on their own. They are not blank. They are fully formed. Okay? Having a full experience in the most present, but okay. Fine. Men are former boys that are now adults and they're guilty. So what age do they become guilty? 17, 18, 19, 20, 35, 45? At what age does the boy go from boy to man and start becoming guilty? When does it start? Real question. I'm not trying to get a gotcha. I'm trying to be serious. Like, when does it happen? Right? Let me know. Because I hear you. You're reacting, right? The state of the world is a certain way, so you're reacting. You said, honestly, teenagers. So 13 or 12? 12? 13? So 13-year-old boys are guilty until proven innocent. Is that what you're saying? What do you think? Yeah, 12 or 13. Okay, so in your belief system, you think children should be targeted as guilty and that these children have to earn their right to be seen as innocent. And how do you become an innocent adult? What does that mean? Guilty, you know, guilty and then innocent. What does it mean to be an innocent adult? What does that mean? What does an innocent adult look like? Innocent of what? And why doesn't this apply to women who uphold patriarchy? Right? What do you think? Chet said, wait, what do you mean targeted? I don't think we should target anyone unless we're targeting them to help them. Wait, are you having a confusion about this conversation or am I? Wait, I'm scrolling through your comments. Let me make sure. Hold on. For me, men are guilty until proven innocent. You said should not be that way. Is that wrong? And then you said guilty at age 12 and 13. And you said, what do you mean targeted? I don't think we should target anyone. Ooh. I'm saying they're innocent until proven guilty, as I'm skeptical of them. They're innocent until proven guilty. Did you just wait? Am I dyslexic? Hold on, I am dyslexic. Did I read your sentence wrong? I'm saying they're innocent until proven guilty, as I'm skeptical of them. I know they're probably not an ally or safe to be around. So you're saying you said it the wrong way around. So you are saying they're guilty until proven innocent. That's a target. You put a target on their back by doing that. So chat said a perfect thing, right? Chat said, what does this mean for black boys who are already seen as adults? What does this mean for black children who are already seen by the cops as adults enough to shoot or be held? This is what I'm saying. Like, how does this not play into racism? So you are looking at children and saying they're guilty. And I'm saying, yeah, what does this mean? Chat says believe victims is guilty until proven innocent in the sense, right? No, believe victims means hear people out and then look for resources. Believe victims mean I believe you. Let's look at the data. When you're listening to someone tell you a story about their life, you go, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. You don't assume automatically it's wrong. You go, can you tell me more about that? And you look for the data. If you're hesitant or cynical or don't believe something, it's on you to check the data. Right? And so believe victims doesn't mean believe people without evidence. But it also means that, I'll show you a TikTok that's perfect for this, actually. Hold on.
I want to go for a run.
It says me as a woman versus society.
I want to go for a run. You can't go for a run alone. You'll get raped. All right, going to get my car in the parking garage. Oh, you mean the giant rape box? You better go get a security guard to escort you. I want to live alone. Well, if you want to live alone, you better get protection. You better get mace, a taser, a gun, a dog, a gun for your dog. Okay, what about the park? Oh, you mean Rape Central? Okay, fine. I just want to go get a drink. Well, then you better keep your eye on your drink the whole time because people put date rape drugs in there. And also keep your eyes out for rapists. I was raped. Are you sure? Seems highly improbable to me. I want to...
Okay, get it? Society sets us up to be worried about men our whole life. And then when something happens and we say we were raped, they're like, seems unlikely, right? Okay, now let's talk about this, guys. Hold on. So for people who are even saying like the 8-year-olds in their class are perpetrators of harm, it's not because they're boys. Ultimately, you do not do an action because you are a gender. This is the myth of patriarchy. The myth of patriarchy says because you are gender, you do said action. The fully deconstructed, dismantled view of a world without patriarchy is one in which gender does not then action. Okay? So that's our goal. My goal, is to see people as genderless action. Gender does not equal action. But yes, we live in a world in which they are formed through patriarchy to fit into said actions. They are victims of patriarchy, and we need to intervene as fast as possible. But the problem is, too many people, we are outnumbered. Too many people believe that men should be this and girls ought to be this. And therefore, it is us against billions of people. Billions! We are the beginning steps, but not the first. People before us have tried to do this. We are this generation, and we're back again at the beginning again. So it is going to be very hard and very focused, which is why you need to check your own bias and prejudice. We don't want to be prejudiced or biased against men gender. We want to be hesitant and data-driven against systems, not gender. Not gender. This is very specific, right? You said I'm saying that because I'm more aware around boys 13 plus because I'm more likely to be targeted by them, but I'd like to know if that's an error in my thinking. Are you a teenager? That might change things. Are you a kid? Because if you're a kid, that'd be different. I don't usually have a lot of young people watching me like that. Are you a child? Or are you working with children? Like, why would you be more targeted by 13-year-old boys? I haven't seen a 13-year-old boy in 20 years. I don't even know a 13-year-old boy. You know what I mean? So I assume you are working with 13-year-old boys. You know, you said I'm an adult. Are you? Okay, I'm assuming you're working with children or something. Well, it's very hard. It's very hard, which is why we need to encourage people who are more like, if you're at a disadvantage working with teenage boys, there's a lot there that could be fixed before ahead of time. I would argue that your concern is not the boys. Your concern is the way the boys were raised. In the same way, guys, gender, race, bodies, like we don't want to be building up bigotry or prejudice towards people because of their body, okay? Or because of their internal compass or internal relationship with self, right? You said, no. Not only them, I mean, as soon as they're 13 or older, they could be more dangerous than, say, a woman any age. Oh, you're talking about the fact that boys are strong. Like they have some testosterone advantages, generally speaking. Because trust me, I could beat up a lot of 13-year-old boys, okay? There are a lot of 13-year-old boys out here who wouldn't stand a second with me in the ring. But you're talking about the 13-year-old boys that got muscle, they're taller, they have definition, they have a lot of, okay, because there's a lot of little pug-ass nerd 13-year-old boys I could beat up. Okay? So you mean the boys that are, I get it. 100% I get it. That isn't because they're boys. That's because they're big and strong. But when we generalize the male experience as being big and strong, you also miss out on the fact that what about the teenage boys who don't fit into that stereotype? Are they less boy? Are you going to also judge them the same way? What if they're disabled and in a wheelchair? Are you still afraid of them? Because, like, honestly, you should be. They could run over you in a second. You know? That's the point. The point is like, it's not really the gender. You're worried about the way they show up, the way that things could happen, but you're not, it's not that because they're boys. And I think that's the point I'm saying, come from a place where, you know, Chet says, aren't they more likely to target people? Okay. Okay. I had a really scary experience with a group of teenage boys once. I won't go into it. It was honestly like traumatizing. And they were really scary. And in that moment, I thought to myself, how could a group of children make all of these adults feel so afraid? And they did. And it was really hard. But I realized in that moment, I couldn't blame the kids. I realized in that moment, it was such an obvious cry for attention. It was so obviously, what are you going to do? And I thought to myself, what are we going to do? After I was done being terrified, because genuinely, girl. But I thought to myself, what are we going to do about this? Because how fucked up was this situation that this group of boys terrified this whole group of adults, and none of us could do anything. And the only thing they had on them that we could understand was like backpacks and vegetables. Fruit, I think, in particular. And I kept thinking to myself, what a horrible situation this is, and why can't anyone do anything? Now, a big part of it was the group of adults around us was me, 5'1", Brittany, and elderly people. Men and women, but elderly. And I thought, oh, we can't do anything. Because the only thing in this moment that would make anything better was somebody stronger and bigger than them. Not somebody who would do something, but somebody who could do something in a way to humble. But that's not the answer either. That's the Band-Aid. So the Band-Aid solution was someone bigger and stronger to make them pause. But it wouldn't have been the solution because that wouldn't have in any way positively impacted the boys. It just would have de-escalated in a way that, or maybe escalated, who knows, right? So I hear you and I see you, but I think for me, this is just a symptom. And that symptom is not going to make me more bigoted. That symptom is not going to also, that situation, I refuse to let it make me feel that way about every group of boys I see. Because not every group of teenage boys is this boy. There are plenty of sweet and wonderful groups of teenage boys that are out here just buying matcha together, that are out there getting their nails done together, that are out here going to the gym together. There's lots of groups of teenage boys that help people with their groceries and do XYZ, right? So I'm not about to take this situation and apply it to every group of teenage boys I see. But I think the fact that those boys exist in the first place is such a testament to where the world is and where we are. And the fact that we don't have a solution for it should tell you what it really means to be like a person on the planet. You can't control others. You can only control yourself. And so what my work is trying to do, what I think a lot of people's work is trying to do, is trying to say, stop defining your worldview by the worst possible thing that could happen and start asking yourself, what are your values? How do you want to incorporate those values into morals? How do those morals impact your ethics? And how do those ethics allow you to move within the world that harm reduces? You know, that's the idea. The idea is that, you know, when we're having this conversation, we have to understand that it's very hard to deconstruct our like bigotry and prejudice. Does that make sense? Your prejudice. And yes, it might be for safety, but is it also going to come at the harm of a group of boys you see and they're just having a nice time and you're going to call the cops because you feel afraid when they're just trying to drink their matchas? Do you have the ability to truly introspect, extrospect in that moment and say, I'm not in trouble. These boys are fine. Everything is good. Do you have the discernment to say, I'm in trouble. I need to call for help? Because as long as you are afraid and doing it out of fear, you will hurt more people in the long run. Now, I'm not saying this, and I think this is important. Okay? If you have intuitive feelings, if you feel like the data makes sense and you feel afraid, but you don't know exactly why, it's okay to exit that situation and think on it later. You said, I think I do, but if you do, then why would you phrase it as guilty until innocent? If you really have the discernment, you would not need to make people guilty. You would humanize them first and judge them on the basis of their actions second, right? So why would you then say, I have this discernment and also I'm going to assume you're guilty? How does that make any sense? And to the chatter earlier, I don't know where it is, but I think you talked about a male babysitter. Let me say this. There are people who are men that I'd be more than happy letting babysit children. It might not be most men because most people aren't even raised right, but definitely I've met so many men, so many boys that would make great babysitters. The problem is a lot of these people, and I think this is the problem with a lot of us, we don't really know who's safe in what way because we haven't really thought about it in a much deeper way. Like my parents, my partner and I, before when we decided not to have kids, a big part of it was the village. What village did we have accessible for our children? And my parents, they wouldn't be able to babysit our kids. Not because I think there'd be sexual abuse, but because there'd be bigotry abuse. My kids would be in a home being influenced by their grandparents who would say bigoted things against queer and gay people or gender fluid people, i.e. their parents. Right? Like, in what way would I send my kids to that home? But if I told my parents that, they'd be like, what? What do you think? You think I'm going to do something to your kids? No, you're not going to do something. You're going to say something. You're not going to do something. You're going to put Fox News on in the background or a Catholic channel. You're not going to do something to my kids. You're going to talk at dinner time about your opinions about vaccines. And no one's going to be there to correct you. It'd be different if my parents and I were with my kids and my parents go, you know, ivermectin, the one from the pet store is amazing. And I go, ivermectin from the doctor is better. Okay? It's different if I'm there to counter the misinformation. But that's why I say, like, this is a problem of humanity as a species as a whole. This is not something that gets fixed overnight, right? You said, I think I phrased it wrong. I use guilt as a placeholder for skepticism. I'm skeptical of them until I get to know them. Prejudice. You know, guys, I'm really skeptical of Black people. When I see Black people, I just think to myself, you know, statistics show, you know, the numbers show. What are you talking about? You know, gay men, they're all into younger boys. When I see a gay man, I just wonder, does he like my child? Come on. We can't, no. Not ultimately, not if we're truly deconstructing. Okay? Not if we're truly deconstructing. Not if we're truly introspecting. Not if we're truly eradicating patriarchy from our thought and our mindset. No. But your cautiousness against men raised in patriarchy who are not deconstructing is valid. But you can't apply it to every man. You would have to apply it generally to people who haven't deconstructed. Right? So men as a system, be cautious of. Men as people, no. No, like that's not the way you want to think about men. Again, I don't want men to hear this conversation who are misogynist and be like, he. This isn't about you. This is a safe space for people to really ask themselves, how do I really ask myself, what does humanity even mean? Remember that conservatives are justifying the genocide against Palestinians because they're homophobic. They're pinkwashing the genocide. Well, I don't care. I don't know why you guys care about this whole group of people if they think gay people should die. Right? Oh, see, chat says, right, I don't treat anyone differently besides avoiding them whenever possible. I will never have a male doctor. Okay, I think we're done with this conversation. I'll comment on that in a second. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. You are wrong. And you are prejudiced. And you are absolutely doing a disservice to yourself and others. Male doctors can be some of the most helpful and wonderful people in the world. They can help you so deeply, not because they're men, but because they happen to be good doctors who are men. Women are great doctors, not because they're women, but because they're doctors. And yes, if your doctor, regardless of gender, does their research, is deconstructed, they're great. And I say this as somebody who's almost always had a female physician. I've almost always worked exclusively with women doctors, but I have had male doctors in the past and they've been fantastic. Okay? Okay? You said I agree with you, but I'm not going to take the chance. And that is your right. And that is fine for now. But I think until I couldn't imagine a joyful, healed, person holding that belief, because what you believe matters. So I'll give it to you. You're okay where you are. It is what it is. It's a journey. But for my greater audience, I certainly want you to deconstruct that, because ultimately, gender is fluid. I mean, I'm a man. Would you not let me be your doctor? If I was a doctor, you'd probably say, but you're not a real man though, right? And I get you. I get what you're saying. But also, what does that mean? You know, these are all the questions we have to have. It's like, but also, you know, my mother used to say this growing up, and this is internalized misogyny. My mom would say, I only have male doctors, because I had a female doctor once. She was your delivery doctor, and I didn't like the way she gave me care. So I never went back to a woman doctor. I only work with men. Was that the answer? No. You know, right? Chad says, I'm not going to stop thinking about it. You could be my doctor. I'll have a queer male doctor even. There you go. So there you go. You're thinking, your instinct isn't technically, like, it's based off something real, right? 99% of violence, or 91, it's like 98% of the violence is committed by men. I hear you. And also, but I hear you. And I think you're really working with good numbers here. I just think we should do something about those numbers as well. So, okay. You got it. Okay, now let's do this, right? So now we've seen this content, but we're not done. You've seen Dr. K. We've had this great conversation. Thank you for that. Okay, now let's do this, right? Let's do this. Get ready.
Intervene to course correct that? Should we put systems in place to make sure that those men meet partners?
Does society have a responsibility to correct this? Bro is seriously asking if we should intervene in the problem of fewer men being able to have children. Now, Dr. K, to his credit, says no. Society does not have a responsibility.
I love that she's the only one who has the context so far
to remedy this.
Do people have the right to reproduce? The answer is basically no, because for men, that requires the consent of someone else.
A person's right to reproduce never overrides someone's right to not want to reproduce with them. Men do not have a right to children. Period. Full stop. This brings us to Chris Williamson. If Dr. K is the doctor telling you that men are starving, Chris Williamson is the pharmacist handing out the cure. And the cure is, you guessed it, women's compliance. Chris is a frequent guest on the podcast. Recently, Bartlett asked him how he would solve the love crisis. And Chris's advice for women? Cultivate receptiveness.
One other thing I think that is maybe a slightly unusual strategy that women can cultivate is receptiveness. So I think, especially in a post-Me Too world, a lot of guys are very scared of approaching. Guys have always been scared of approaching women, but in a post-Me Too world, they've been taught that anything short of a hell yeah is a no, get away from me, so that you don't make the girl feel uncomfortable. Guys already were quite nervous going up and talking to you, so you have to treat a man and his interest, kind of like slightly inexperienced golden retriever. Needs to be very loud, very obvious signals of interest from you.
A golden retriever?
This is again another. I love her. This is Therese. Therese. Yeah, we watched her. She made another. Which video of hers did we watch? I really like her. You know what's funny? My sister just sent me one of her videos and says, "Do you know this girl? I just started watching her." And I said, "Yeah, we watched her on stream." What happens is we get on this microphone, myself included, and we say this thing as if men are a monolithic experience. Not all men struggle to approach women. Not all women are waiting for men to approach, right? So like, yeah, we've been trained by society to assume that this is the most desired relationship dynamic. So we build a standard off of this. Again, when we talk about standards, and this is why I say maybe the standard is good for some, but not for all. So this is this this is the, whoa, Brittany, hello, happy much? This is the standard, okay? So we notice that the standard seems to appeal to the most people. So then we go, I guess this is what we should do. Instead of realizing like, that doesn't mean this doesn't work. That doesn't mean the pockets of the world you see around you doesn't work. It doesn't mean, that's why I always say, I remember when I start to introduce more unorthodox ways of courtship or partnership or having connection with people, and they're like, Brittany, men can't do that. That's not normal. If I can do it, you can do it. I'm not the exception. When you live in a world where Brittany gets to be the exception, you live in a world where, one, you're saying I'm better than you, because honestly, but two, you're putting me on a pedestal that doesn't exist. I'm just a person like everybody else. So I'm not saying you can do it exactly like me, but if we can live in a world where people can watch porn and it's healthy, we should probably get there. Everyone is always complaining about porn. Okay, I have a really good relationship with porn. Do you guys want to hear how I do it? And they're like, no. And I'm like, but if I have a good relationship with it, do you want? No. Okay, but what about? No. Okay, again, there's like my farm brother, the one I told you about. Do you know what he believes? And I'm going to put him on blast right now. We were having a conversation about porn because I was like, you got to stop telling your kids not to masturbate. And he was like, what? And I was like, you're going to drive your kids crazy. They are going to be so fucking horny and pent up, and you're going to fucking confuse them. Stop telling your kids they can't masturbate. Leave your kids alone. Leave their genitals alone. He's like, okay, first of all, they're not even interested in that stuff yet. I was like, you don't know that. And second of all, he was just like, listen, porn leads to sex trafficking. I was like, please sit the fuck down. Who told you that? And he goes, yeah, without porn, no sex trafficking. And I said, God damn it. I'm not even going to talk to you right now. I'm so mad. I was like, I love you so much. I'm not going to talk to you right now. I was like, that is not what causes sex trafficking. And like, we were laughing and like, we were like bantering as siblings, but that is the problem with conservative bubbles. They literally don't understand why things happen. They don't understand why porn can be a problem. Dr. K loves video games, but he also understands why they can be a problem. But he's not going to say video games are unique or porn is unique. He's going to say, yeah, these are your problems right now, but it's actually not unique to porn or video games. The problem with conservatives is they're like, oh no, it's specifically the video games and porn. It's not. Do you know the groups of women? You ever hear a woman who won't say, who will say like, I'll never date a man who plays video games? What they mean to convey is, I don't want a man who plays video games for 8 hours a day. And that's funny because I don't care about that. I don't, because you know what the equivalent is? It's like if my partner came to me and say like, I don't want you sitting in your office for 8 hours a day. I'd be like, okay, first of all, it's my time on earth. I kind of do what I want. But also, are you saying that because it's coming at the expense of something? In that case, it's not the video games, is it? Because if let's say my partner was a hiker and my partner was out hiking every day for 8 hours a day and it was neglecting the family. Would you then say like, you know what? I wouldn't date people who hike. Or would you say, I would really like a present and active person in my life that would participate in making sure this family is joyful and stable and happy and all the good things? You know what I mean? It's just like when we have these conversations about like, I don't want a person like this. What you're saying is lifestyle. I don't want a person with this lifestyle. And I'm saying for some of us, we do, but also it looks like this. So I don't count how many hours a day my partner and I are on the computer. But if we notice something is going wrong, we'll say, what have we been spending our time on? Well, we'll look at the list of things to like, we'll find the problem. But the problem shows up in the data. So obviously we have a problem in society, but we can't assume we know the answer and be like, porn. Is it the porn? Or is it our relationship with porn? Right? Okay.
Telling grown women to treat adult men like puppies. Don't scare him. He's just a little puppy. Do you understand how insulting this is, asshole? Not just to women, but also to men. He is infantilizing half of the human race in order to justify why men can't handle rejection.
In the Middle Ages, or aristocratic Middle Ages.
Pause. Are you a historian? If I hear goddamn in the Middle Ages one more time for men with podcasts, that's what I mean. If I hear, girl, are you a historian? I stopped doing it too. As an autistic girly who likes things, I stopped doing it too. I'm not a historian, girls, okay? I don't know these things. Do not look at me as a point of authority. Are you a historian, Chris Williamson?
These would drop a handkerchief in front of a gentleman. Oh, mom. Oh, in 2025 in New York, there are women stealing Finance Bros salads, finding their names from the salad on Instagram and then messaging them and saying, sorry, I accidentally took your salad. Like, that's the 2025 equivalent of dropping the handkerchief.
I'm not in this bubble. I don't know what's happening. But when I suggest maybe a bubble with consent, if I was in this bubble, I'd say, hey, girl, stop stealing his salad and just go up to him and ask him for a date. She'd be like, no. I have to steal his salad. Okay, I don't know why I have to commit a crime. Just go up and ask for a date. So they would be like, no, Brittany. And I'm like, okay. But I feel like a healthy person would probably go up and just ask for a date. They'd be like, nah, that's crazy.
You like that guy and he's not approaching you? Maybe assume that he doesn't know that you like him.
He wants you to do the equivalent of dropping the handkerchief, like we're in a goddamn Jane Austen novel. He wants us to do this to signal to men that it is safe to approach. Because apparently in a post-Me Too world, men are too terrified to speak to a woman unless she's waving a white flag. Bro, please. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, literally love her. Okay. I'm so, this is what I'm saying. Like, I understand coming to the internet and being like, what a fucking loser, da-da-da-da-da. And I also understand that when we zoom out, it's really not about calling people losers, even though it feels fucking good and I love doing it. It really is about something deeper. Like, we're really in a meaning crisis, guys. Like, fuck the world. We're serious now. This is so much bigger than your little gender war. This is so much bigger than everything else. Like, people are fundamentally suffering so deeply because we're not introspecting. We're not doing the work. We cannot fathom that we are contributing to the bad in the universe. All of us are contributing. All of us. You know what I mean? So there's just like this problem. Oops, ignore that. There's just this problem that is happening. And we keep looking for quick solutions for it. And it is so much deeper and more. It's just such a big mess that I know it feels overwhelming to realize it. But that's why I say, start with yourself and go out. Okay? One more video and then we'll have a closing conversation about this.
I think is creepy.
It says, what makes someone creepy? And he's talking to a girl in a collaboration.
When someone doesn't, so what do we think is creepy? When someone doesn't read our empathic signals. When they don't give off empathic signals. Comfort in human relationships is about back and forth. So I send you this thing. Hey, Francesca, what are you doing later tonight? Yeah, you like it, don't you? Yeah, you want to see more? I know you're 24. Guess what? I'm 42. No! Do you like it when we inverse things? Do you like to be one way and I'm the other way? Like creepy as right?
Oh my
You're
God,
laughing. But that's creepy. So what's creepy about that? What's creepy is even though you're laughing, empathically, you're creeped the fuck out. And am I respecting that? Am I with you?
No.
Not at all.
No, you keep going.
I keep going. I don't care where you are. And any person, I hope to God you have video and you guys can, because my body language too, right? Like, hi, I'm Dr. K. Call me sometime, baby. I'm so fucking self-absorbed. I do not realize that what I do to you is repulsive.
So having that empathy and being able to read social cues.
100%. Body language, tone. And this is why everyone is turning into a creep, because when I communicate with people via text or a dating app or Discord, the parts of my brain that receive that information and the parts of my brain that transmit that information are not used. So what?
Okay. So this happens a lot, right? Men are afraid to approach women. Men are afraid of being made fun of. The dilemma, though, is that there is a lot of like social people are inept in a bit, but it's not the way that you think, but it is kind of the way you think. Okay, he's right that we laugh uncomfortably. I do that. I laugh. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I do this. I'm like, right? I do that. Ineptitude. Thank you. I do that. And then I realize I'm doing it because I feel unsafe. And I'm like, okay, see, I'm happy. Please leave me alone. Like, please go away. And that's the problem. So in their head, they're like, she's laughing. And they know men who are funny get laid. Men who are funny get girlfriends because we keep telling them we love a funny man. The dilemma is that I'm laughing because I'm literally scared. Please leave. And so it's like, okay. And then there's that disconnect. There's a disconnect between, oh, wait. And this creates a lot of this is why I say open and transparent communication is a little bit better. Just saying like, hey, I'm interested in you. You know what I mean? Can we talk about it, right? Discord said uncomfortable laughter isn't seen as a yes. The mask women wear for politeness is ignored. Okay, exactly. Men are, you said it so well. Yes, men as a whole are ignoring the fact that women have to wear polite masks. Because if we're not polite, going back to original chatter who said they were worried about men, the consequence might be death. If we are not polite to men, sometimes the consequence is death. And that causes all these men who are obsessed with evolutionary biology, psychology, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I evolutionized myself into fearing enough to make a mask so I'm polite so you don't kill me. How's that for your evolutionary psychology, okay? So there's this whole part where the laughter is like, okay, like, Yes, Jess as the reporter on Live surrounded by creepy men comes to mind. 100%. Video after video of women being just harassed by men, like yelled at, and the women have to be like, oh my God, be cool or they'll hate you. Man, you're no fun. Oh, she's ruining the mood. Like and that's why I say like, I don't like group activities because I'm usually I'm the one, you know what I mean? So when we see Dr. K in a full scope of things, I think it's obvious to me that he is desperately trying to help one of the most neglected parts of society, which are incels, gamer boys, these men who are seriously socially suffering. And I'm saying I am not about to get in this man's way. And I really recommend women don't either. But I think you should continue to focus on the men that are the issue. Stephen Bartlett and often the people he platforms who are spreading a lot of misinformation. The Jordan Petersons, the Andrew Hubermans, like these men, the Andrew Tates, you should keep criticizing these men. But I think Dr. K, get out of his way, girl, because he's doing the Lord's work because I'm not going to do it myself, okay? This is the first part of the gender conversation I want to have, but tomorrow we have to have the other one because we didn't talk about queer people. We didn't talk about fluidity. We didn't talk about, well, what if I'm not just my body? What is really gender in the core self? So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. But see how we had to cover all this bullshit first? That is very real and impacting people's lives, but it feels kind of like bullshit when you get to the second part of the conversation. When you get to the second part of the conversation, it's going to feel like liberation. You're going to feel so light tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to feel so good, okay? I already got so many videos planned, so many things I want to show you. It's just going to feel so good. And that's the feeling I want you to have. And the same way that I want you to feel good approaching a woman because you're not worried about being Me Too'd, which by the way, chat, is a dog whistle. When men say post Me Too era, if men say, oh, after Me Too, referencing Me Too as a negative, okay? Bad, red flag. Me Too was a real phenomenon that didn't go far enough, in my opinion. And remember, was hijacked out of a black woman's hands into a white woman's microphone. Just a reminder, okay? And absolutely diluted, but absolutely necessary. Remember that. Remember the history of Me Too, okay? First started with a black woman standing up and saying, we got to do something. And what did it become? A white woman march with pussy hats. So what, are we just our genitals now? Are women just their genitals? Cool, girls. Well done. Look, we can have criticism for the way that march was held from a progressive lens, but it was needed as a cultural shift. We needed to have these conversations for real. It was really important. You know, it's very important. Okay. So we'll have that conversation tomorrow about gender. Also, guys, just a sneak preview into next week's podcast. If you haven't seen this week's podcast, Why Older Women Date Younger Men, please go check it out. the next podcast I'm doing, why conservatives are more likely to be predators. It's going to be so good. It's going to be great. I can't wait. I can't wait. Okay, I will see you guys tomorrow. Be kind to yourselves. Go watch Dr. K fully or don't. Honestly, girls, listen to me. If you watch Dr. K and you're not vibing, it's okay. Because listen, I'm not vouching for him. He's not my friend. I don't know him. Okay? But listen to me when I say this. It's okay to watch him and not like his content. That's okay. Okay? That's okay. You're not a bad person if you don't like his content.